Marella huffed and puffed, her footsteps crunching on the gravel as she struggled to keep up. Princess, that's enough. I can't fun anymore. Behind her, a little giggle echoed through the garden. Mo alla fuester. I squealed, my chubby legs carrying me faster than Marella could manage. My golden curls bounced wildly with each step, and my tiny shoes kicked up bits of dirt as I zoomed across the grass like a hyper squirrel. Faster, Marua. Fuester. I chirped, my words still a little jumbled because, well, I'm almost 2 years old now. I can talk, run, and walk like a pro. Well, a slightly clumsy pro, but words? Yeah, we're still working on that. Marella groaned dramatically, bending over and placing her hands on her knees as she gasped for breath. Princess, have mercy. Mercy? Pfft. Not in my vocabulary. I giggled again, spinning in a circle before flopping onto the grass with all the grace of a tiny sack of potatoes. Marua, you too slow. I huffed, crossing my arms and puffing out my little cheeks. Slow. Marella wheezed, finally collapsing beside me on the grass. Princess, I've been chasing you for the last 20 minutes. I'm not slow, I'm just not 2 years old. I giggled louder. She had a point, but was that my problem? Nope. Nothing much had changed since Papa left for the western provinces. Theon and Grandpa Gregor took care of all the boring Papa's business stuff here. Me. I ate, played, and napped, the holy trinity of a lazy princess. But there was one thing I definitely didn't do. Set foot in my nursery. Nope. Not happening. Ever. Ever since Papa turned my nursery into his personal photo gallery of doom, I had refused to go back in there. I mean, how am I supposed to sleep surrounded by 100 different versions of Papa's brooding, scary face staring down at me like I owe him money? No thank you. Not in this lifetime. So now my playtime kingdom had shifted to the gardens, the throne room, and my chamber. Princess, Marella sighed, sitting up and wiping her forehead. Do you want to go inside now? It's getting chilly, Princess. No, I whined dramatically, rolling over like a pancake. Stu pwaying. But it's cold. Pwaying. I insisted, my chubby little fists pounding on the grass like I was calling forth the gods. Marella groaned but didn't argue. Smart move. She's going to catch a cold, she muttered under her breath. I'd take my chances. I was too busy counting the clouds, wondering if Papa was counting the clouds wherever he was. Probably not. Papa was probably counting how many idiots he had to deal with today. Oh, speaking of idiots, those merchant troublemakers. I may be small, but I'm not stupid. I've heard enough to know that Papa had crushed those merchants in whatever chaos they were causing in the western provinces. But the damage they caused, that's a different story. And now, because of those idiots, Papa and Grand Duke Regis had to stay there until things were stable. Which means, nobody knows when he's coming back. It had been 8 months since Papa left and no one had a clue when he'd be home. Princess. I blinked and looked back only to see Noni. I beamed, scrambling to my feet as fast as my tiny legs allowed. Nanny Narina. She crouched down and opened her arms, and I ran straight into them, giggling as she scooped me up like I weighed nothing. It's time to have lunch, my princess. Aren't you hungry? I pouted dramatically, placing a hand on my tummy as if I were a starved orphan. Hungry. I mumbled with big sad eyes that would make anyone melt. She laughed softly, ruffling my curls. Let's go then. Lord Osric is here too. I froze. Ugh, Osric. I scrunched my nose, feeling the sudden urge to fake a stomachache. Osric had become my official playmate after Papa left. Grandpa Gregor always brought him over so I wouldn't feel lonely. Osric was okay, I guess. But Oswick again? I mumbled, sticking my lower lip out in a dramatic pout. Princess. Nanny Narina gave me the look. You know, the one that says, behave or no dessert after lunch. Fine. Osric might ditch me in the future, but for now he was one of the few people I was close with. So, he was annoying, but I could tolerate him. For now. A white. I mumbled, resting my head against Nanny's shoulder as she carried me inside. As we reached the dining area, there he was. Osric. Standing all prim and proper like he was attending some royal banquet instead of a lunch with me. His short brown hair was neatly combed, and his little suit looked like he was about to negotiate a peace treaty between empires. Why was he always so serious? We were kids. He should be running around and eating dirt like the rest of us. That's when he noticed me. His brown eyes lit up and a warm smile spread across his face. "Greetings to the only princess of the Ilarian Empire," he said, bowing like a miniature gentleman. Pfft. Always so formal. Nanny put me down gently and I huffed, crossing my arms as I stomped over to him with all the royal sass I could muster. "Oswick, why bowing? Didn't I tell Yao to call me Lavi? When we are all alone?" I pouted up at him, narrowing my eyes for extra effect. Osric's smile didn't falter. If anything, it grew wider. "All right. Much better." Osric had changed a lot too. He wasn't that scared 6-year-old kid anymore, the one who used to flinch at the mere sight of Papa. Nope. Now he stood a little taller, his expression calm and composed, and he didn't look like he was ready to run at any second. He looked brave, but still annoying. I may hate him for what he was going to do in the future, but I couldn't hate him now. Not yet. "Let's have lunch, Princess and my lord." Nanny Narina's gentle voice interrupted my thoughts, and I blinked, realizing I had been staring at Osric for too long. I nodded, my tiny tummy rumbling in agreement. "Why?" Osric chuckled. "I can hear that, Lavi." "Oh, hush." I waddled over to my seat like a boss, climbing onto my chair with the grace of a potato. Nanny helped me scoot in and soon a plate of delicious food was placed in front of me. "Yum," I mumbled, picking up my tiny fork and stabbing a piece of roasted carrot like I was fighting off evil. Osric, ever the little gentleman, sat across from me, eating like a proper noble. I, on the other hand, was busy shoveling food into my mouth like I hadn't eaten in days. Because who has time for table manners when you're starving? "Lavi," Osric spoke up, glancing at me between bites. "Have you been practicing your letters like I showed you?" "Oh." I froze mid-bite, a piece of carrot dangling from my fork. Slowly, I blinked at him, trying to come up with an excuse. I chewed quickly and swallowed. I was busy. Busy. Osric raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. I nodded vigorously, my curls bouncing. "Viewy busy. Doing what?" "Think, Lavi. Think." I looked around, my eyes landing on Nanny, then Morella, then, the window. "Counting quids." I blurted it out, proud of my genius excuse. Osric blinked. Then blinked again. "Counting clouds." "Yup." I nodded seriously as if I had just announced a royal decree. 1, 2, many quids. Osric pressed his lips together, trying not to laugh. I could see it. His shoulders shook a little, and his eyes sparkled with barely contained amusement. He better not laugh." "I see," he murmured, finally schooling his expression. "Well, counting clouds is very important." "Viewy important," I echoed with a sage nod. "But," he tilted his head, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "You will practice your letters after lunch, right?" Betrayal. Letters. Ever since Osric learned how to write, he has been obsessed with sending me letters. First I thought it was cute. He would send me little notes with wobbly letters, telling me about his day, asking if I had eaten, and sometimes even drawing silly pictures of the palace. And it happened. Osric decided I should start sending him letters too. "Lavi, you don't have to use words," he had said with that bright-eyed look. "You can draw and tell me how your day was." Why did he need to know what I did all day? What was so interesting about me trying to steal sweets from the kitchen or annoying Papa's nights? But I had agreed. Mostly because I was bored and drawing was fun. At first it was just silly things, stick figures of me, Thean, Grandpa Gregor and Osric. But slowly, too slowly for me to notice, Osric started sneaking in lessons. "Maybe you can add a letter here, Lavi," he'd say sweetly. "Why not try writing sun next to the sun you drew? Lavi, wouldn't it be fun to write Thean under his picture?" And before I knew it, boom, Osric had become my teacher. Not officially, but unofficially? Oh yes, he was definitely my teacher. Sneaky little Osric. Now he wouldn't let me skip my letters, no matter how many clouds I counted or how many important princess duties I claimed to have. I sighed dramatically, my spoon clanking against my plate. "Thean." Osric's grin was full of victory. "Good girl, Lavi." He was lucky I didn't have food in my mouth, or I would have stuck my tongue out at him. "Oswick, you are so lucky I don't hate you yet." I stabbed another carrot, but this time, my hands slowed. The laughter echoing in the dining hall suddenly felt distant, like a dream I was afraid to wake up from. As I knew what was coming. That innocent smile of Osric will fade away soon. There was no coldness in his eyes yet, no hollow, lifeless stare. Just warmth. He looked so alive. Like a normal little boy who was just happy to be here. Happy to have lunch with me. Happy to tease me about my letters. But it won't last long. I know. According to the novel, Osric Valerius Everhart's childhood was anything but warm. It was supposed to be empty. Hollow. And that emptiness was going to swallow him whole after the assassin attack at his mansion. My tiny hand gripped my spoon a little tighter. The Everhart mansion, the place where Osric should have been safe, would become a nightmare soon. The thought of it made my chest feel tight, my tiny hands clenching harder around my spoon. I could almost smell the blood in the air, feel the chill of that empty mansion. I could almost see it, blood. Everywhere. The grand hall that once echoed with laughter would be filled with the screams of dying men. The scent of iron in the air. And Osric, standing in the middle of it all, frozen. The day Grand Duke Regis and Grandpa Gregor would die protecting him. It wasn't going to be just any assassin attack. No, it was going to be a massacre. A carefully planned, large-scale attack that would leave nothing but devastation in its wake. And Osric. He would lose everything. His home. His family. His childhood. That day would break him. The bright-eyed, cheerful boy sitting across from me, the one who smiled so warmly and looked so proud when I agreed to practice my letters, would disappear. And what would be left would be a hollow shell. A boy who would grow up haunted by that night. A boy who wouldn't sleep because the memories would claw at him every time he closed his eyes. The attack happens in a week after Grand Duke Regis and Papa return from the western provinces. That's when everything changes. I blinked, my eyes focusing back on Osric, who was happily munching on his food, completely unaware of the storm that was waiting for him. I know it's coming, but what could I do? I'm just a tiny little potato with barely enough strength to hold a fork properly. How was I supposed to stop something so big? My chest felt tight and for a moment I forgot about my carrots and letters. I just watched him. Osric. Was there any way to save him? Could I change this part of the story? Or was fate too strong, even for me? I wanted to. But interfering too much with the plot, that could cause something, right? Wasn't that what always happened in these stories? When the transmigrated person tried to change too much, the world would fight back. Fate had a way of balancing things out no matter how much someone tried to change it. But I have already changed so much. Lavinia Devereux was supposed to grow up neglected, unloved, invisible to her father and everyone else. But now, Papa loves me. He dotes on me so much that I sometimes feel like I'm the center of his world. And it's not just him. Nanny Narina, Morella, even Osric. They all care about me. They all treat me with warmth that Lavinia was never supposed to know. So, could we change this part of the story too? Can we? That was the real question, wasn't it? Because if I tried to stop the assassin attack, if I saved Osric, what would happen? Because fate is a tricky thing. Push too hard and it pushes back harder. I wasn't ready to find out just how much it could push. So, it was better not to do anything. Better not to interfere with the novel's plot. I think. As I was thinking about whether to interfere with the novel plot or not, whether to save Osric's childhood from becoming a nightmare, the doors of the dining area swung open with a loud creak. The clanking of boots made my head snap toward the entrance. Grandpa Gregor walked in, his big familiar presence making my heart feel all warm and fuzzy. Grandpa. I squealed, jumping from my chair and launching myself straight at his legs like a tiny cannonball. Please, be careful, Nanny panicked. Grandpa chuckled, scooping me up with ease. He was my fortress while Papa was away, my protector against all things boring. And obviously he let me do whatever I wanted. Best. Grandpa. Ever. Osric followed behind, his usual soft smile on his face. Grandpa Gregor ruffled my hair, making it even messier than it already was. How is my little princess? Grandpa Gregor asked. Grandpa. You cannot ruin my hair, I declared, swatting at his big hand as he ruffled my carefully styled locks. Grandpa hummed in mock seriousness. Oh, but it looks a little messy already. Perhaps I should fix it for you? I gasped. No, it's perfect. I covered my head with both hands as if protecting a priceless treasure. Then my sharp eyes caught Theon standing beside Grandpa. He was smiling, but he looked nervous. Suspicious. I squinted at him. Thun, are you okay? Theon's smile stretched wider, but I wasn't fooled. I am absolutely fine, princess. Liar. His eyes did that little twitch thing that meant something was up. Then he and Grandpa exchanged a glance. Yep. Definitely fishy. I am upset a little because it's been so long since I played with my princess, Theon said, all dramatic. I narrowed my eyes. Really? He nodded. Yes, princess. So, why don't we play in your nursery? I stiffened. The nursery. The place where Papa's pictures were everywhere. The room I had been very skillfully avoiding. And now these two traitors were trying to trap me in there? Nice try. But they underestimated me. They thought they were dealing with a helpless 2-year-old. Fools. I was Lavinia Devereux. And I knew exactly what to do. Pretend I never heard it. I turned my face away like a queen dismissing nonsense and wiggled in Grandpa's arms. Put me down, Gwampa. Grandpa Gregor, being the ultimate enabler, didn't question me. He just set me down gently. Good, Grandpa. Now time for phase 2 of the escape plan. I spun around dramatically because subtlety was not my thing, and bolted straight to Osric. Osric, let's go play. Osric blinked, clearly caught off guard. Oh, but Lavi. I have to go for sword practice. Sword practice? Why does an 8-year-old need to play with swords anyway? Shouldn't he be playing with wooden blocks or something safe? But wait. This was an opportunity. Then, can I come watch? I asked sweetly, batting my big red eyes. Osric's entire face turned pink. Why, you really want to come? What's with the blushing? Was watching sword practice really that special? I nodded, bouncing on my toes. Yes. Let's go. I threw in an extra jump for effect, just in case they didn't catch how excited I was. This was my escape route and I was going all in. Theon and Grandpa Gregor exchanged a look, their silent communication obvious. But before they could hatch another plan, I grabbed Nanny's hand and declared, I want to see Osric Swoud fight. Nanny, let's go. Nanny hesitated for a moment. Theon sighed, looking at me like he was going to give up on any hope of getting me into the nursery. Victory. With Osric leading the way, I walked proudly, knowing I'd just avoided the nursery trap like a pro. Saving Osric's childhood? I'd deal with that later. For now, I'd successfully escaped. Lavinia. 1, Theon and Grandpa. 0. And now I was in a field. But not just any field, oh no. This was the sword-fighting field, where Osric was desperately trying to figure out how to stab things with a pointy stick. Grandpa Gregor stood there like a general on the battlefield, teaching him parry, slash, and other boring grown-up words that made no sense to me. Meanwhile, I was sitting on a bench, swinging my little legs and munching on macarons, bored out of my mind. I mean, how could anyone enjoy all this sword-wise stuff? Nom nom nom. I was getting crumbs all over the place, but whatever. I'm 2 years old. I'm too cute to be scolded for it. Far off in the distance, I could see Theon, Nanny, and Morella huddled together in some sort of secret meeting. They looked worried. Oh, they looked nervous. Like they were waiting for a giant explosion or something. They kept looking at me like I was some sort of walking time bomb. But honestly, what could I do about it? I'm just 2 years old. I can't exactly solve everyone's problems. Right? I took another bite of my macaron, completely unbothered. Then, after what felt like hours of sword swinging, Grandpa Gregor gave Osric a break. Osric came running over to me, his face flushed from exertion, practically bursting with excitement. Lavi, did you watch me practice? I blinked. Practice? I'd been staring into space, my macarons slowly disappearing into my mouth. But sure, let's make this sound. I was watching. I put on my best, I'm totally impressed face and clapped my little hands, making sure to exaggerate my movements. You were awesome, Osric. Osric's face turned a deeper shade of red, his eyes wide with disbelief. Really? I waved my macaron like it was some sort of royal scepter, aiming for maximum drama. Oh, yes. Yeah, we're great. Swordwine stuff suits you. Osric's cheeks turned pinker than I thought possible. He stood up straighter, all puffed up like a peacock. If you like it, then I'll learn more and become the best sword fighter and protect you. I blinked. The best sword fighter? I tried not to roll my eyes because, well, he was just being so earnest. I had to at least play along. But in my head it was another story. Osric would be a better sword fighter, sure, but the best? Oh, sweet little Osric, that's not in your future. The best sword fighter in the Empire? That role was reserved for someone else entirely. Someone much darker. Someone who would poison me in the end. My future personal knight and the second male lead of this novel. But I couldn't just burst his bubble, could I? So I smiled the sweetest smile I could muster and gave him a dramatic thumbs up. All the best, I said, as if I were bestowing a royal blessing. And then, suddenly, a knight came running toward Theon, looking all serious and important. Theon then sighed deeply, as if the weight of the entire world was pressing down on his shoulders. Nanny and Morella gasped, like they'd just heard that the sun was going to stop shining. The very air seemed to tremble with their collective sighs and gasps. It was like they were in the middle of a sighing and gasping competition, trying to see who could do it the loudest. Grandpa Gregor walked over to them, his face already full of, well, sighing and gasping. Then he sighed too. Sigh, sigh, sigh. I narrowed my eyes, trying to figure out what was going on. What was with all this sighing and gasping? Was there a prize for it? Maybe I should start practicing my own gasps. If I perfected it, maybe I'd win a prize too. But no. For now, I decided to focus on what really mattered. The mysterious tension hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Theon, Nanny, and Morella all walked towards me, looking completely and utterly worried. Like their favorite pet had gone missing. Grandpa Gregor stepped in, kneeled down to my level with a smile that was half comforting, half knowing. It was the kind of smile that meant something was going on. "Princess," he asked softly, "do you perhaps remember your father?" Wait, what kind of question was that? Of course I remember him. He's my papa. Not some cloth to forget. He is a ruthless emperor and someone who makes me feel safe. But I didn't say anything. Instead, I tilted my head to the side, giving him a smile that was all innocence. Because, well, I am innocent. Grandpa Gregor's smile didn't waver. "It's okay, princess," he said with a chuckle that sounded just a little too reassuring. "You don't have to force yourself." But Morella, oh Morella, did the thing she always does, panic. But my lord. She stammered, wringing her hands like someone had taken her favorite ribbon. Grandpa Gregor turned to her with a gentle smile, his eyes filled with quiet wisdom. "It's okay. She's the princess. No one can say anything to her. No one can say anything to me." That sounded suspicious. Like a declaration of my superiority. Not that I minded, being the princess has its perks. But still something felt. Everyone sighed again in perfect unison. Seriously, they needed to stop. The constant sighing was starting to make me feel like I was supposed to be doing something big and important. And honestly, I wasn't in the mood for any grand adventures today. I just wanted to eat more macarons. Grandpa Gregor turned back to me, his smile widening just a little. "Let's go, princess. We have to go somewhere." I blinked, feeling a twinge of curiosity. "Where, Grandpa?" He smiled again, that knowing smile that made everything feel like a mystery I just had to solve. Then, with a flourish only Grandpa Gregor could pull off, he lifted me into his arms. "You'll find out soon, princess." Now I was really curious. Where were we going? What was happening? Were we off to a secret treasure vault? Was I about to meet some very important people? Or wait, no. This couldn't be a trick to get me to that dreaded nursery, could it? Because no. I wasn't falling for that one again. But whatever it was, I had to find out. Grandpa Gregor wasn't going to spill any details. So I smiled up at him, my little heart racing with excitement. "Okay, Grandpa." And now I don't know why, but here we were, standing at the grand gate of the mansion. The knights were lined up all stiff and serious like they were guarding something super important, which, well, they probably were, considering me standing there. Grandpa Gregor stood beside me, his posture regal and calm as always, while I, being 2 years old and way too curious for my own good, just stared around with wide eyes, trying to make sense of this sudden change. Why were we standing here? What was going on? And then I heard it. Horses. The sound of hooves pounding the ground. The clink of armor. Knights shouting orders. It was so sudden, like a storm had just arrived, and I couldn't help but feel the excitement building in my little chest. My heart started racing and I gripped Grandpa's cloax tighter. Grandpa Gregor didn't move an inch, but I could tell something was different. His expression shifted just a little, like he was expecting something. Or someone. And then I saw him. Papa. He was riding in on a magnificent black horse, his cloak billowing behind him like the wings of a dark angel. The knights followed him in perfect formation, and there was something so powerful about the way they moved, so precise, like they were part of his command. I couldn't stop my eyes from widening as I stared at him. My papa. My ruthless, scary, amazing papa is back. I get it now. That's why Grandpa asked if I remembered Papa? Of course I remember him. My scariest, most amazing Papa is back. I was so happy. My Papa was back and everything felt right again, and I can't wait to run and hug him. But then, my little brain lit up. I got a brilliant idea. Oh yes, this was going to be so much fun. Let's have little fun. Hee. The pulse of excitement thrummed in my chest as I stood there, barely able to contain the overwhelming feeling of joy that surged through me. My Papa was back. The Emperor was back. Everything felt like it was falling into place, like the pieces of a puzzle finally aligning perfectly. It all clicked. Of course, Grandpa Gregor had asked if I remembered Papa. He was testing me. But now I understood why. I could hardly wait to run to him, to throw myself into his arms and declare my joy to the heavens. But then, something made me stop. My little brain went ding ding ding. I had an idea. A brilliant idea. A mischievous, wonderful, slightly evil idea. Oh yes. I had to have some fun with this. A sly grin curled at the corners of my lips as I let the moment draw out, letting the silence weigh heavily upon the room. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, just like I had been. My Papa, the Emperor, my terrifying, invincible father. He was back. And I was about to make him regret leaving me behind. I stood there, holding Grandpa Gregor's cloak innocently, my face blank as I pretended not to know what was going on. As if I hadn't recognized him the moment he stepped through the door. As if I wasn't dying to throw my arms around him and say, "Papa, I missed you so much." The silence stretched just as planned. And then Papa dismounted from his horse. The tension in the air only thickened. The ground seemed to vibrate under my feet, like a storm was coming, the air electric with anticipation. And then every single person bowed. From little Osric to Grandpa Gregor, they all lowered their heads in deep respect, murmuring, "We greet the Majesty, the Emperor of the Illyrian Empire." The entire space seemed to move in perfect synchrony, like a well-rehearsed performance. Knees bent, heads lowered, hands held at their sides. The whole space moved like clockwork. Everyone except me. Meanwhile me? I stayed standing as innocent as a newborn lamb. No clue about anything, just standing there with wide, angelic eyes, like the most clueless little princess who had no idea what was happening. I was playing my part perfectly. Then Papa's voice, sharp and cold as steel, sliced through the silence. "Raise." And everyone raised. Theon stepped forward, his gaze filled with reverence. "Welcome back, Your Majesty. I hope you had a safe journey," he said, his tone respectful but tinged with awe. Papa nodded once, a simple gesture, but his gaze never wavered from me. His eyes, as sharp and cold as ever, locked with mine. A beat of silence. A shiver of tension rolled through the air. It was like the entire world held its breath. I could feel it, the weight of the moment, building as Papa's gaze grew colder, sharper, but warm for me. And then, he took a step forward. And now my evil plan begins. I pretended to flinch, like my heart skipped a beat. With exaggerated drama, I darted behind Grandpa Gregor's legs, peeking out from behind him with the most innocent, terrified expression I could muster. My big eyes were wide, my little face trembling as if I had just seen a monster. And then, in the softest, most fragile voice I could manage, I peeped out. "Who are you?" Buff boom. Papa froze like a stone statue. Everyone froze. Time itself stopped. The knights behind him, even Grand Duke Regis, who had been standing tall and steady behind Papa, they all froze. The birds in the sky stopped mid-flight. The air went completely still. Papa's expression was one of utter shock. And then nothing. Not a word. Not a movement. The silence stretched so thick it was almost palpable. I blinked innocently, my heart racing with excitement. Papa, the most powerful, ruthless emperor, was speechless. How do you feel, Papa? Do you regret leaving me behind? Do you see now what you've been missing? It's fun. The world around us, his entire world, froze. Me. I was standing there, still the innocent little princess, with a smile tugging at the corners of my lips, trying desperately to hide the evil glee bubbling inside me. It was perfect. But what I didn't know was, my little evil plan would soon backfire on me. And now here I was sitting in the royal meeting room surrounded by everyone I could ever imagine in such a serious, intense setting. Grandpa Gregor, Grand Duke Regis, even Osric, who was acting like a grown-up with his furrowed brow and serious little face, were all gathered here. Theon, standing behind Papa, looked like he was about to implode from nervousness. Nanny and Morella were standing at a safe distance from the meeting table, like they knew something terrible was coming my way. Me. I'm sitting at the table without a proper chair, like some mere child who couldn't be bothered to sit like royalty. Excuse me, am I not the princess here? Can't they spare me a little respect and get me a proper chair? This was so embarrassing. Papa's cold, calculating gaze was fixed on me, and his hands were folded in front of him like he was plotting some great military strategy, and I couldn't help but shiver for real under the weight of his stare. Then he spoke in that sharp, commanding tone of his, the one that could make anyone's blood freeze. So, she never entered the nursery after I left for the Western Province? I almost choked on my own breath. His voice cut through the air like 1,000 sharp daggers. Theon, poor Theon, looking like he had already been sentenced to a life of endless awkwardness, nodded nervously. Why yes, your majesty. Okay, I was about to be scolded, wasn't I? Should I run away? But before I could react, Grandpa Gregor smiled and said, the babies tend to forget people they don't see for long periods, your majesty. It's normal. Papa's voice was as cold as a blizzard. That's why I ordered everyone to put my pictures in her nursery. Papa, that's a little excessive, don't you think? Grandpa Gregor chuckled awkwardly, trying to backpedal. Yes, well, kids can get bored of one place too soon, your majesty. Papa grunted almost to himself. Huh. I should have put my picture all over the palace. Wait. What? All over the palace? Are you serious, Papa? Are you trying to haunt me or scare the maids? But then, Papa's serious tone broke through again and my stomach dropped. Should we call a high priest or perhaps a mage to bring back her memory? At that point I nearly fainted. A mage. No. This was turning into a full-on crisis. I glanced nervously at the others, but Grand Duke Regis was already stepping in, his voice calm but steady. That won't do anything, your majesty, he said. It will only scare the princess. I felt a sigh of relief, for a second, until Papa's gaze turned back to me. His eyes narrowed, and with an expression that could freeze water, he leaned closer, scooping me up with his giant hands. I couldn't escape even if I tried. I am your father. Did you really forget me? Now that cold, ruthless expression, it was no longer funny. It was terrifying. I shivered, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay with my Papa all the time anymore. I was regretting my evil plan to tease Papa. I hadn't expected this turn of events. Then with a long, exasperated sigh, Papa looked at Nanny and asked, Narina, what should I do? Nanny, as always, was the voice of reason, bowing deeply. You just need to keep the princess close to you, your majesty. Papa blinked and looked at me for a second, mumbling, close to me? Nanny nodded. Yes, your majesty. All right, he nodded seriously, like this was the most logical solution. He stood up, holding me in his arms like I was a helpless doll, and with an air of finality declared, from now on every second my daughter will stay with me. I will take care of her. I blinked, my heart pounding in my chest. Wait. Hold up. What? Are you kidding me, Papa? I did not sign up for this. No more playing, no more fun, no more freedom? I love my Papa, but I can't just be glued to his side 24/7. I know I'm your precious daughter, but I'm also just 2 years old. I can't stay by your side forever. I have things to do. I need to play, eat, and explore. I can't be your shadow every second of the day. But I can't even say anything now. After all, I'm the one who dug this hole and fell into it. Why did I ever pretend to forget him? This was a huge mistake. I was already regretting my evil plan to tease Papa. Yes, it had backfired on me spectacularly. And like a defeated warrior on the battlefield, I accepted my fate with a heavy heart. The journey to the bedroom was eerily silent. Normally, at this time every day I'd be running around the palace like a criminal, demanding snacks from Nanny, or playing in the mud in the garden. But today I was a captive. My crime? Mischief. My punishment? Bedtime. Papa strode into his chambers with all the authority of a man who owned the entire kingdom, which technically he did. His heavy boots made that ominous thud against the polished floor, the sound of doom. Then without a word he placed me on the massive imperial bed. "Stay here," he ordered firmly, his piercing gaze holding no room for negotiation. I nodded. Like a good little daughter. Like the perfect, obedient offspring of Cassius Devereux. For now. Then to my utter confusion he pulled something from his belt and handed it to me. "Play with this. Dot." I blinked. Blinked again. It was a tiny wooden sword. I glanced up at him waiting for the punchline. Surely he was joking. Any second now he'd pull out a cute stuffed bunny, a doll, or literally anything remotely suitable for a delicate 2-year-old girl. Nope. Papa just crossed his arms and looked at me like I was the weird one. "What?" he said, then continued. "You are not allowed to go out." But. No, but. Oh, come on. I just wanted to ask why he gave me a sword. Was he preparing me to conquer neighboring kingdoms already? Should I start drafting my royal battle strategies? Maybe send a carrier pigeon to announce my impending reign of terror? I mean, at least give me a doll or... Then I sighed dramatically. Who was I kidding? This was fine. This was expected. I should have known that in this household, cute toys meant weapons of war. Fine. If this was my destiny, then so be it. I would embrace it. With a theatrical sigh of acceptance, I flopped onto my belly and swung my tiny sword around aimlessly, preparing for battle. My enemy, boredom. I am now slashing at imaginary enemies, fending off invisible dragons and taking down entire armies, all from the comfort of Papa's luxurious bed. I was a warrior princess now. Papa smirked, and just then a maid entered and Papa said, "Prepare the bath." He then walked into the bathroom, leaving me alone with my new noble weapon. And as time passed, I started enjoying it. Slowly as I swung the sword and slashed at imaginary dragons, I started to have fun. Then I stood on the bed, raising my tiny sword toward the ceiling. "I am the mighty Princess Lavinia," I declared. "No evil shall prevail in my kingdom." I slashed the air, cutting it in half, and jumped on the mattress, bouncing slightly, waving my sword. "Bow before me, for I am the greatest." A deep voice interrupted my grand speech. "What are you doing?" I froze mid-swing and turned my head ever so slowly. Papa stood there, fresh from his bath, a towel draped over his shoulders as he wiped his wet hair. His piercing gaze locked onto me like he was the most dangerous person in the room. Which was ridiculous because obviously that title belonged to him. But I was a warrior princess. I couldn't let mere intimidation break me. So, gathering all my courage, I pointed my tiny sword directly at him. "Bow to the princess," I declared in my most regal voice. The room fell silent. Papa arched an eyebrow. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, stared me down with the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. His gaze was intimidating, urging me to back off. But I was the princess, the daughter of the tyrant White Emperor. Then he smirked, continuing to dry his hair lazily. "Did you forget?" he said, his voice smooth and deep. "I am the Emperor." He leaned in slightly, his crimson eyes gleaming with amusement. "And princesses bow to the Emperor." Oh no. I gulped. Fine, this was a battle I could not win. And so, like a true warrior who knew when to retreat, I slowly lowered my sword, and flopped face first onto the bed. Papa smirked, then lay beside me and tucked me inside the blanket. With his big hand, he rubbed my cheek gently and asked, "Now, do you know who I am?" Why was he asking again? But then I looked at him. His eyes were still cold, but I felt something else behind them. It hurt. Was it because I had pretended not to recognize him earlier? Fine. I mean, I cannot tease my papa for long, right? So, "Papa," I mumbled softly. His eyes widened slightly before he smiled gently and pressed a soft kiss on my forehead. "That's right. I am your papa, and you shouldn't forget that." I thought that would be the end of it. That he'd let me go, let me be free to run around the palace, chase butterflies, eat snacks, and live my best 2-year-old life. But no. I was wrong. Papa always proves me wrong. Because I am here, sitting on the royal couch in Papa's grand office, abandoned like an unwanted kitten. I pouted, kicking my legs in frustration while eating the cakes placed before me. Across the room, Papa sat at his massive desk, buried under an avalanche of documents. The pile was so high that only his head and broad shoulders were visible. His brows were furrowed and his expression screamed one thing: annoyance. I was annoyed too. Why did I have to sit here while he worked? I sighed dramatically and stuffed another piece of cake into my mouth, watching as Theon read through some documents. Your Majesty, Theon started, his tone calm yet serious. While you were away in the western provinces, many noble families took the liberty of embezzling funds from the treasury. Papa didn't even look up. He simply exhaled slowly through his nose, his fingers pressing against his temple. Theon continued, some even imposed higher taxes on their territory without permission. Looks like some nobles started behaving like they owned the country while Papa was away. I was gone for 8 months and they already think they can do whatever they want? Papa said, complete annoyance dripping from his voice. I watched as Papa leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping against the wooden surface of his desk. Then he spoke in the same casual tone one might use when deciding what to have for dinner. Just kill them. Silence. Theon didn't even blink, as if such orders were a normal part of his daily routine. He simply nodded. Understood. Shall I arrange for the usual measures, or would you like to make an example of them? I, on the other hand, was already used to all this. It wasn't a new thing for me to know that my papa was a tyrant. After all, he was the man who ruled with an iron fist. Still, casually ordering executions in front of his 2-year-old daughter? Wasn't this too much? Well, he did take me to an execution ground when I was 3 months old, so maybe not. Papa sighed again and pinched the bridge of his nose. Start with the worst offenders. Public executions for those who defied imperial law outright. The rest. Make them regret their actions. Theon gave a slight bow. As you wish, Your Majesty, and walked out of the office. As for me, I silently buried myself deeper into the couch. Not because I was disturbed. Please, I was used to my papa's extreme methods. But because I was bored. Then my eyes landed on Papa, still buried under his documents. And Theon was gone. I looked around. This was my great chance to escape. So I slowly, without making a sound, got down from the couch and tiptoed toward the door. My tiny feet barely made a sound against the polished floor. I was like a ghost, a shadow, an unstoppable force of stealth. I reached the door, placing my little hand on the handle. Just one push and I was free. Before opening the door, I glanced back at Papa. Still busy. All right, let's go and play. I turned the handle as quietly as possible, my heart pounding with excitement. Freedom was just one step away and, yes, I successfully stepped out of the office. Yeah. But just as I was about to make a run for the garden, I spotted Nanny and Morella walking toward the office, carrying trays filled with more snacks and drinks. Oh no. If they saw me, they would surely drag me back inside and imprison me on that wretched couch again. My glorious escape would be cut short. So, like a true fugitive, I spun around and darted in the opposite direction, my little feet carrying me as fast as they could. I ran, until I finally reached a different part of the royal garden. I stopped to catch my breath, stretching my arms toward the sky. Yeah. Freedom. With a triumphant laugh, I flopped onto the grass, rolling around without a care in the world. I chased butterflies, played with fallen petals, and even tried to catch a tiny frog, which unfortunately jumped away before I could hold it. Everything was perfect. And where am I? I blinked, looking around. This place. This wasn't the garden I usually played in. Sure, I knew our palace was massive, ridiculously huge to be honest, but I'd lived here for 2 years now. And yet, somehow I had managed to get completely lost. Feeling both intrigued and a little nervous, I wandered deeper into the unfamiliar area. Then my eyes landed on something unexpected. A pond. Oh, I tilted my head in awe. We have a pond in our palace? Why didn't I know this before? This was a major discovery. Excited, I skipped forward, enchanted by the way the water sparkled under the sun. It was so beautiful, so calm, so... I crouched down and dipped my tiny fingers into the water. Cold. Fascinated, I leaned in a little closer, watching the ripples dance on the surface. Then a little closer, and closer, and then I tripped and... Splash. Blub. The world turned upside down as the icy water swallowed me whole. Wait. Did I just... Panic surged through me as the coldness wrapped around my tiny body like an unforgiving embrace. My arms flailed, my legs kicked wildly, but the water was heavy, pulling me down, down, down. I tried to scream, but only bubbles escaped. No, no, this can't be happening. I just wanted to play. I just wanted freedom. Someone, save me. Papa. Papa was going to be so mad if he found out I left the office. He must be looking for me. Everyone must be looking for me. But what if no one found out? What if no one even came looking for me? I ran away. I snuck out. I was all alone. Would they even know I was here? Would Papa realize I was missing before it was too late? More bubbles. More sinking. The blue sky above blurred, getting farther and farther away. I don't want to drown. I don't want to. And then, darkness crept in from the edges of my vision, and the last thing I saw before everything faded was the peaceful blue sky above, completely unaware that I had just fallen to her watery doom. I didn't mean to fall. I really didn't. 1 second I was laughing, my little feet dancing over the garden path. Sunshine on my hair. A butterfly fluttering just out of reach. And then splash. A slip. A stone. A sharp turn that didn't go the way I planned. My arms flailed. The world spun. And suddenly, I was under ... The water wasn't deep. Not to grown-ups. But to me so small, so little, it was like an ocean. Cold, loud, angry. My vision blurred. The sky above me rippled and vanished. I opened my mouth to scream and water rushed in. I choked. Get up. Move. Please move, Lavinia. But my legs didn't listen. My arms floated like broken toys. Wasn't I supposed to be strong now? Didn't I get another chance? Wasn't I supposed to grow up and live a full life this time? Move. Get up. Swim. But nothing worked. My body dangled like broken strings and I was floating. No sinking. And it hurt. Gods, it hurt. My heart pounded too fast or maybe too slowly. I didn't know anymore. My body didn't feel like mine. It felt far, far away. I thought of him. The only family I have. I'd lived before, hadn't I? Worked myself to death in that world. No love. No warmth. Just endless days of nothing. But now I was here. With him. Papa. And yet, was this it? Was I going to die again? Wasn't I supposed to die by poison? Isn't this a story? I just wanted a little freedom. I just wanted to play, to laugh, to enjoy the life I never had in my previous one. I know I was wrong. Very wrong. But my fate was to die from poison. Not like this. Not cold. Not scared. Not in a place where Papa couldn't reach me. I don't want to. I don't want to die again. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have snuck out. But please, someone save me, please. I want to stay with my Papa. I want to grow. I want to feel the love I never had. So, please, someone, please save me. Anyone, please. Then a whisper left my lips, fragile as a breath. Papa. But I knew no one would have heard my whisper. The sky above me shimmered, rippled, and faded. I reached for it, but my fingers only grasped empty blue. Everything felt so far away. And it hurt. So much. Maybe if I just closed my eyes it wouldn't hurt anymore. Maybe if I just... Vinia. A voice. Distant. Desperate. Calling my name. Lavinia. The sky tore apart. A shadow. A splash. Arms. Strong. Shaking. Pulling me from the dark. Air. Light. A ragged burning gasp. Life. Lavinia. I knew that voice, rough, fierce but safe. Papa. I couldn't see. My eyes wouldn't open right. But I knew who he was. Even through the cold that clung to my skin. Even though the dark is still trying to take me. That scent. That voice. Those arms that wrapped around me so tightly like they'd never let go. It was Papa. My father. He held me against his chest like I was something precious. Like if he let go the whole world might shatter. You're okay. I've got you, he said, but his voice cracked. Lavinia, open your eyes. Please. I wanted to smile. I wanted to tell him I'm okay now because Papa was here and he always made the bad things go away. But the pain tugged me down again like the water hadn't quite let me go. Still, just before the dark swallowed me whole I felt it. The way he trembled. The way his heart pounded against my cheek. The way his breath shook as he whispered. I've got you. His lips pressed to my forehead. Desperate. I'm here, my girl, he whispered. Please, wake up. And suddenly I wasn't afraid anymore. The last thing I heard was a roar, his voice wild and broken, laced with terror and fury. Call the physician. The priest. Drag them here. Fast. I opened my eyes. But I didn't see the sky. No sunlight. No garden. No papa. Only dark. Endless, suffocating dark. It wasn't cold exactly. Not warm either. Just empty. Like the space between heartbeats. Like the breath held just before a scream. I blinked. Once. Twice. Still nothing. No shadows. No land. No stars above. Just me and the mirror. It floated in front of me, tall, thin, silver-framed, like something pulled from an old, forgotten memory. There was no stand, no reflection. Just a faint shimmer on the glass, as if it remembered light even if I didn't. I stepped closer, though I wasn't sure how. My legs didn't move. My feet didn't touch anything. Yet somehow the mirror loomed larger. The air shifted. And then I saw her. Me. But not me. Reina Suzuki. Dressed in a wrinkled office uniform. Slumped over her desk in a cubicle that looked exactly the same as every other. Gray. Lifeless. A half-drunk cup of black coffee beside her keyboard. Her back curled forward. Her eyes were wide open. Dead. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. He just stopped. Alone. Unnoticed. A single sticky note fluttered on the edge of the monitor. Meeting at 3 p.m. But that meeting never came. I pressed my hand against the glass. That was me. Her reflection didn't move, but I could feel her thoughts. The exhaustion. The ache in her spine. The silence was so loud it hummed in her ears. The loneliness that settled like dust and never left. She was always the dependable one. The responsible one. The one no one missed. The one who died and no one even realized until the cleaning lady came in the next morning and screamed louder than Reina Suzuki, me ever did. And then, just as my throat tightened, the mirror shifted. The office dissolved into firelight and gold, and suddenly I saw Papa's royal chamber. He stood in the center, still in his formal robes, but with a sword in one hand and a physician dangling midair in the other like a particularly useless rag doll. His face was furious, like a ruthless, bloodthirsty king. His voice, thunder. If she doesn't wake up, I behead everyone in this palace. The poor physician squeaked, legs kicking. I blinked. Papa? The mirror shattered into glimmering dust. Wait, what the heck? I spun in place, or I think I did. Where'd the mirror go? I wasn't done processing my trauma. But the dark didn't answer. Then suddenly light. A door of pure white cracked open somewhere beyond my vision. Blinding. Warm. It spilled across the darkness like sunrise over a nightmare, chasing the shadows away. And I heard voices. Princess. Please wake up. Faint. Muffled. Familiar. Then. Heal her. Papa's voice. Raw. Commanding. Terrified. I don't care what you do, bring my daughter back. That's right. He's my papa. The emperor of an empire, the nightmare of 1,000 nobles, and right now, very possibly the downfall of an entire medical system and a holy temple if I didn't get back fast enough. I took a deep breath, or maybe I just imagined it, and let the light pull me forward. Warmth hit me first. The feel of soft sheets. The faint scent of herbs and ink and something distinctly papa, like steel wrapped in lavender. My eyelashes fluttered. My chest ached. My throat burned like I'd swallowed fire, salt, and regret. I opened my eyes. Just for a second. Blurry figures moved above me. Light haloed their edges. The ceiling spun. Voices rang like echoes in a cathedral. My eyes fluttered open just a tiny bit. Everything was fuzzy, like someone had smeared the world with jam. And there, right there, I saw him. Still in full armor, still terrifying. He had the physician dangling midair like a naughty cat, his sword almost kissing the poor man's neck. His red eyes burned like twin suns. Fury. Panic. Madness. All wrapped up in one terrifyingly majestic man. My voice came out dry, broken, barely more than air. Papa. I rasped. Don't kill them. Silence. A hush fell over the room like the world held its breath. And then chaos. Boots slammed against marble. Gasps. Shouts. Someone tripped. Probably the priest. Papa dropped the sword like it burned him, the clang echoing like thunder. He was at my side in seconds, faster than the storm. Lavinia. Warm hands cupped my face. The scent of steel and panic wrapped around me like a blanket. I smiled. Just a little. Thank God, I thought he didn't kill them. He looks very worried. I can still feel his hands trembling as he holds my little hands. I wanted to say more. Tell him I was okay. That I wasn't a ghost. That I was still here. But the pain was heavier than my words. So I let my eyes close again. Safe. Sleepy. Warm. I slipped back into sleep, wrapped in the storm of his fear and the warmth. Warm. My eyes opened slowly. Everything looked fuzzy and bright, like the sun was tickling my eyelashes. Something cold was sitting on my forehead. A wet towel. I blinked. My head felt heavy and my throat was dry. Not nice. Then I saw it. A big arm. Strong and warm, wrapped around me like I was something fragile. Like a glass doll. I turned my head slowly and... He was sitting on the bed right beside me, leaning close. His face was next to mine. His long golden hair was all messy, falling over his cheek. His eyes were closed. He was sleeping. Papa never sleeps near me like this. He always tucks me in and goes away to his scary emperor stuff. But now, he was here. Hugging me like I might disappear. Did he take care of me last night? I glanced up at the wet cloth again. It looked fresh. Papa did it. Papa, who always made other people do things, did this for me. My chest felt weird and squishy. Then suddenly his eyes opened. Crimson eyes. Sharp like a lion's. They landed right on me. He stared. Like he couldn't believe I was real. Then I gave him my biggest, sparkliest fairy princess smile. Good morning, Papa. He paused. Just for a second. Then he smiled, slow and soft, and reached over to ruffle my hair. Good morning. His voice was gentle. Really gentle. Like when he talks to me late at night thinking I'm already asleep. Like when he whispers promises in the dark that no one else can hear. Then he kissed my forehead. I giggled. You sleep like a log, Papa, I whispered and wrapped my little arms around his neck. He squeezed me back, careful but warm. So warm. I felt safe. Later, after Nanny heard I had woken up, she rushed in and immediately scooped me into her arms, hugging me tightly. She was crying. I was so scared, she whispered into my hair, her voice trembling. You scared me, my princess. I hugged her back as best as I could, my little hands patting her back. Beside her, Morella stood with her hands clenched over her chest, sniffling loudly. Why, you really gave us all a fright, princess. I blinked at her. It was warm. Warmth filled the room, and yes, this is what I need. But of course, warm moments never last long in this palace. Later, Papa's royal scary office. You hug my arms. I groaned loudly. Very dramatically. On purpose. Maybe he'd feel bad for his poor, tiny, angelic daughter who almost died yesterday. Nope. I was kneeling on the couch in his big, boring, scary office. My arms were up like I was flying. But I wasn't flying. I was suffering. This was punishment. Why? Because someone, who will not be named because I'm innocent, maybe accidentally snuck out of the palace and maybe gave everyone a teeny tiny heart attack. Maybe almost drowned. Just a little. But I survived. I'm alive. I'm a strong, brave girl. That should count for something. But Papa was mad. Not the yelling kind of mad. Papa never yells. He does worse. He punishes. With cold, scary silence and actions so dramatic I want to scream into a pillow. Like now. My poor arms were up in the air like branches. Tree branches. And I've been like this for 1,000 years. I peeked at Papa. He was buried in a mountain of boring emperor papers. His hair glowed like gold even when he was being mean. I slowly, very slowly, tried to sneak one arm down. Put it back up. He didn't even look at me. I gasped so loudly I almost fell over. My arm shot back up like lightning. If your hands go down again, your punishment time will increase. Excuse me? Am I not his precious, most lovable, most beautiful, almost drowned and totally traumatized daughter? Shouldn't he be giving me hugs and cake and letting me nap on his chest? Nope. He didn't just punish me. No. He went to the pond and had giant fences built around it. Giant. Like he caged the poor pond. Like he was saying, no more sparkly butterfly adventures forever. I sighed. Time to try something smarter. Papa. I whined, putting every bit of sadness I had into that one word. Still nothing. Cold. Ice cold. He forced my hand. Secret weapon. Activate. I turned just enough so he could see me. I made my eyes go huge. I wobbled my bottom lip. I sniffled like the world's saddest puppy. Papa. 3. I was lonely, and the butterflies were so sparkly, and I missed you. Silence. My heart pounded. Did it work? He looked up. Fully. Calmly. Make that face again and your punishment time doubles. Wawa ao what? I almost fell off the couch. I even flailed a little. My arms wobbled. My soul wobbled. This is cruel. I yelled, flopping like a dying fish. Cruel and unfair. This is child abuse. I'm writing a letter to the Emperor. Wait, that's you. You're the Emperor. This whole system is corrupt. He blinked slowly. Unbothered. Unmoved. He went back to ignoring me like I was an unpaid intern. I groaned. Louder. Then I mumbled under my breath very softly, I want Grandpa. Triple the punishment. I didn't say anything. I was dying. My arms were jelly sticks. My knees were made of wobbly pudding. My lips. Dry. Cracked. Forgotten by the gods. I was fading away, a tragic flower withering under royal cruelty. Someone should be painting a portrait of my suffering. Title, The Beautiful Princess in Pain. Hang it in the palace gallery. The door opened. My salvation. My light in the darkness. My emotional support noble. He looked at me, and I unleashed my most powerful weapon, the big eyes. Thean. I cried out like a princess in a drama play who just found out her puppy ran away. My voice trembled. My bottom lip wobbled. I made myself shimmer with helpless beauty. Thean blinked. I threw all the innocent stars in my eyes at him, silently begging for mercy. I screamed internally. I even sniffled for extra points. Tell Papa I'm suffering. I whispered, my lips trembled. Bam. Hit him with the double combo. Baby voice plus betrayal pout. His face turned red just as I predicted. He was melting like butter on hot bread. Thean walked straight to Papa. Your Majesty, he said carefully, like someone trying not to poke a sleeping dragon. Don't you think you're being a little harsh on her? Papa didn't even look up. Silent. Scary. She deserves it. Traitor. I gasped loudly like he'd stabbed me with his icy words. But, she's still recovering, Your Majesty, Thean said, trying again. And I don't think her little arms can take much more. Papa finally looked up. Our eyes met. He saw me trembling like a sad, soaked kitten in a rainstorm. My arms were up like a tree, but my soul was curled up in a tiny, sad ball. He sighed. All right. Put your hands down. Finally, I collapsed onto the couch like a majestic pancake. My arms dropped like anchors into the ocean of freedom. I was reborn. I was alive. Then Papa spoke. Come here. I blinked. Wait. Was that it? Was I finally free? Or was this round 2? But his voice wasn't scary now. It was soft. Warm. Like marshmallows. I slid off the couch, waddled to the snack tray, grabbed a bright pink macaron, my victory prize, and ran to him with arms stretched out like, lift me. He picked me up. Big. Warm. Safe. I beamed like the glorious star I was. Then, gasp, he stole my macaron. What? I shrieked. That was mine. I tried reaching for it, but he held it out of reach, that villain. I glared at him, channeling every ounce of my betrayed soul. But Papa was already looking at me. Stern. Dangerous. And then, he begins. If you sneak out again, he said in a voice that made the windows shiver. I won't just punish you. I'll throw you into the dungeon. Wawa away at. The dungeon. Was this the same man who looks at me like, his little sunshine? The one who thinks I was his treasure, his light, his reason for living? Was this the start of his evil arc? Did you get it? He asked, still low and scary. I puffed up my cheeks like a sad, betrayed little fish. All right, I mumbled. There was a brief silence. Then he sighed, reached over and ruffled my hair with that weird gentleness only Papa has. Then his expression changed, soft, worried. His voice dropped to a whisper. If you want to go somewhere, just tell me. I'll take you, okay? I forgot what I was mad about. I nodded quickly, hugging his neck. Hey. I'm sorry. Dot. He smiled. And at long last he gave me back my macron. So we've executed those nobles in public as you ordered, your majesty, and set an example. Execution again? I blinked from my perch on the imperial throne of doomsday, also known as Papa's lap, my cookie halfway to my mouth. Must been those pesky nobles who acted like drunken chickens while Papa was away. You know, barking orders, throwing coins, and probably plotting something treasonous while stepping in goose poop. Classic noble behavior. I should be shocked by the E word. But at this point, execution is like breakfast. See Papa kill. See Papa execute. See Papa smile gently at me and then threaten someone's bloodline in the same breath. It's basically my daily schedule. The real mystery. Why am I still here? Seriously. After the drowning incident, I expected Papa to go back to his usual half-cold, half-dash, I'll burn the world for you routine. Instead he went full apocalypse dad mode. First he not only caged the pond. He put guards around it like it's some royal hostage. No. He doesn't leave me alone. Not for a second. Before he used to wake up before me and vanish like a broody ghost. No. Now he waits. Every morning. Standing like a storm cloud draped in black and gold, arms crossed like a statue of divine judgment, glaring at the Morella as she adjusts the ribbon on my dress like she might strangle me with it. Ready? He asked the moment my shoes were on. For what? For the day. You're coming with me. And before I could protest, I was scooped up like a potato sack, but a luxurious imperial potato sack, and carried out of the nursery like his personal handbag. And that's how my day starts these days. We reached the imperial office. The land of papers. Boring papers. Angry Papa. And words like border dispute, rebellion, and my personal favorite, total annihilation. I tried to fight. I really did. Papa, I want. You're sitting here. But why? Because I said so. That's it. No explanation. No hope. No mercy. And just like that, there I was. Perched on his lap. Holding a cookie. Drowning in paperwork I couldn't read while men in robes argued over war and taxes like overcooked pigeons. To be fair, I was allowed to go out and play. But under certain conditions. 12 nights. Nanny. Morella. Possibly a surveillance bird. You think I'm joking? I sneezed once and a knight dropped a healing potion like I was about to explode. I bent down to pick a flower and 3 swords sprang out of their scabbards. In case the daisy attacked me, I guess. And sometimes, just sometimes, Papa himself would follow me around the garden like a silent stalker with emotional issues. I'd be playing tag with butterflies, twirling in circles, and then, let's get inside. But it's only been half an hour. No more. I stared at him like he'd betrayed the sun. Sometimes I wonder, am I a princess? Or a glorified prisoner with a tiara? I get it. He's worried. I drowned and almost died. But if I survive much more of this affection-packed surveillance, I might drown in dramatic suffocation. Still, when I looked up and saw him watching me, eyes tight with fear he'd never say out loud, like the universe might snatch me away if he blinked. Well, maybe being kidnapped by Papa's paranoia isn't so bad. So, I swear I saw one of the knights inspecting a bush for snipers the other day. Someone save me. Please. Or at least bring snacks. And that's how I've been living these days. Just a small, oppressed imperial pancake, slowly being sautéed in affection and surveillance. Truly I live in fear. And by fear I mean warm blankets, 15 guards breathing down my neck, and Papa watching me like I'm going to trip on air and die. I didn't even realize it was that day. The day Osric would lose every single member of his family. I was far too busy doing absolutely nothing productive, lying limp on the grand couch in Papa's office, occasionally flipping over like a sad fish, holding a crumb-covered cookie like it was the last piece of joy left in the world. It was late. Theon, going through reports with all the emotion of a soggy turnip, muttered, "Should I collect more taxes from the nobles, your majesty?" Papa, without even glancing up from his mountain of murder paperwork, said, "Do whatever you want." I blinked from my pancake position. So they just collect taxes when they're bored now? Honestly, good idea. It's not like the nobles are misunderstood kittens. They're more like overgrown children with swords and powdered wigs, and I've seen at least 3 of them cry when Papa raises an eyebrow. I was just about to go back to contemplating the meaning of my tiny, imprisoned existence when something sparkled. I looked out of the window and the sky. Wait, the stars. There were so many tonight. It looked like someone had spilled glitter all over the universe. Whoa. I slid off the couch with the grace of a sleepy possum and crashed into the window with my nose smushed against the glass like a sugar-starved goldfish. Wow. It's beautiful. Papa paused. So did Theon. I felt their gazes shift toward the window. Theon strolled over, blinking like this was the first time he'd looked outside in 20 years. Indeed, princess. The night sky is beautiful today. Then he tilted his head slightly like a confused chicken. Is it today? I turned around, blinking suspiciously. What? And then Papa, in his deep, calm, utterly terrifying voice, dropped a sentence like a bomb. All the stars will align tonight. You can see it. My eyes lit up like fireworks. Really? Suddenly I was very serious about astronomy. Like I'd forgotten how to spell danger because of the stars. I turned dramatically, launching myself at Papa's leg and latching on like a barnacle with a wish. Papa, I want to see. Please. Please, please, please. I'll be good, I promise. He stared down at me. Silent. Booming. Like he was deciding whether to say yes, or send me to a monastery. And then, let's go. Please. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. The garden felt different tonight. The usual paranoia guards were scattered around like glittery statues, and I could hear Morella whispering something about blankets and cloaks. Papa carried me outside himself, like I'd blow away if he didn't. And of course I was wrapped in a cloak like a royal burrito of doom, complete with fur lining, heated cuffs and a second smaller cloak layered on top. I looked less like a princess and more like a walking cinnamon roll with political influence. And then we both looked up. The stars were so bright. It was like someone had spilled diamonds across black velvet. So peaceful. So quiet. And then it hit me. That scene. From the novel. I could see the words flashing in my head like subtitles. The stars were aligned. The sky was beautiful. But for him, it marked the end of everything. I froze. When Osric, the Grand Duke of the Illyrian Empire, stood alone. He looked up at this same sky, stars aligned just like this, and thought it was beautiful. As it was. But for him, it became the most tragic night of his life. The same beautiful night where he lost everything. Assassins slipped into the Everhart mansion like whispers in the dark. Everyone was slaughtered in their sleep. Servants, knights, family. All of them. A massacre painted in silence and blood. Grand Duke Regis fought alone, but he had already been drugged. And little Osric, just 8 years old, saw it all. Alone. Terrified. Drenched in the horror of a night he would never forget. My eyes widened. It's today. The Everhart mansion will be under attack today, or it already has been. How could I forget this? I shivered. Anxiety crawled up my spine like ice water. My whole body trembled. Papa noticed. He looked down at me, his voice dipping into something low and sharp. What's the matter? I stared up at him. Should I tell him? Would he even believe me? Would I sound insane? Wait. Am I allowed to meddle with the plot? Girl, you already did. I changed Lavinia's fate. I survived when I was supposed to die. I turned the tyrant emperor into a doting, overprotective father who now treats me like I'm made of spun sugar and divine wrath. So no, I can't just sit here wrapped in a designer baby cloak, munching cookies while Osric gets trauma-bombed into villainy. Absolutely not. Not on my watch. I clutched Papa's robe like my life and Osric's mental health depended on it. He frowned, his gaze sharpening. Lavinia. What's the matter? Panic. Full-blown panic. I have to save Osric. But how? How do I explain that an entire noble house is being murdered right now? How do I casually drop, Papa, the Everhart mansion is under attack, without sounding like I licked a magic mushroom? He'll think I'm just babbling nonsense. And by the time he realizes I wasn't, it'll be too late. What do I say? What do I do? How do I save him before it's too late? How do I explain that an entire noble house is being murdered right now? How do I casually drop, Papa, the Everhart mansion is under attack, without sounding like I licked a magic mushroom? He'll think I'm just babbling nonsense. A 2-year-old's midnight fever dream. And by the time he realizes I wasn't, it'll be too late. What do I say? What do I do? How do I save Osric before it's too late? And then something clicked. Right. I remember now. How did I forget this? In the novel there was a moment, Just a passing line, a blink and you miss it kind of tragedy. It said Grand Duke Regis had tried to ask for help from the Emperor. He sent one of his knights to the imperial palace in a last-ditch effort to get reinforcements. But the knight was stabbed in the stomach. He died before reaching the palace. His body was found a little distance from the imperial gates, crumpled near the side road, horse still saddled. And that's how they found out the Everhart mansion was under siege. But it was already too late. If I'm right, then that knight should already be out there. Bleeding. Dying. Alone. I looked up at Papa. His gaze hadn't left my face, concern etched deep between his brows. Papa. I whispered, clutching his robe with both hands, I want to see those stars. From the other side. He blinked. The other side of the palace. I nodded solemnly, like I had just asked him to take me on a spiritual journey and not a royal detour at bedtime. Yes. The stars there are prettier. He furrowed his brows. You can see them from here. No, I whined, tugging harder. Please. Scope. I want to see. There was a long pause. He stared at me, crimson eyes narrowing slightly as if trying to read the hidden message underneath my toddler insistence. I kept my face as innocent and non-suspicious as possible. Then he sighed softly and smiled. All right. If you want to. Yes. Thank you, Father of the Year. We made our way down the long marble corridors, through the quiet gardens bathed in moonlight, and toward the main gate of the imperial palace. I fidgeted in Papa's arms, my heart thudding too fast for my tiny chest. This was it. The moment. I was right. Papa, I said quickly, put me down. He raised an eyebrow but obeyed, gently placing me down on the cold stone path. I immediately spun toward the gate and squinted into the darkness outside. Of course I couldn't see anything. I'm 2 years old. My eyesight's basically ornamental. I wish I had a telescope. Or like, night vision goggles, I mumbled. What is it, Lavinia? Papa asked behind me. Nothing. I chirped. I pretended to be enthralled by the stars, pointing randomly at the sky while sneaking glances toward the road beyond the palace gates. And then I saw it. A horse. An empty horse was standing a little ways off the main road outside the gate. Its saddle straps were dark and it looked like some shadow. Of course I couldn't see the knight. He must have already fallen, out of sight behind the hedges or lying in the ditch. But that horse, it was the sign I needed. Oh. Papa, look there, I said, pointing through the bars of the gate. It's a big horse. Papa turned his head. Theon followed his gaze and blinked. That's right, he said slowly. It's a horse. But why would there be one standing there alone outside the imperial palace? Yes. That's right, Theon. You beautiful, competent man, you caught my bait perfectly. Papa's eyes narrowed. In the Empire, knights didn't leave horses roaming around like that. Every patrol was accounted for. Every horse had a rider. Go and have a look, Papa ordered coldly. 3 guards immediately snapped to attention and jogged forward, torches flickering against the darkened stone. I stood there, still pretending to stargaze, pointing at the sky like nothing was wrong, but my stomach was already twisting into knots. I knew what they were going to find. And then they rushed back, their armor clanking, breath ragged and eyes wide with panic. Your Majesty, one of them shouted, barely stopping to bow. There's a knight, an Everhart knight, lying dead just beyond the gate. A collective gasp cut through the night like a knife. What? Theon barked. An Everhart knight? Papa's expression sharpened, his brow furrowing, mouth tightening into a thin, dangerous line. Something clicked behind his eyes. He looked at the nanny immediately and ordered. Take Lavinia inside. Her arms were around me before I could blink. I didn't even protest. Because this was out of my hands. Let's go, my princess, she whispered gently as she turned away. I twisted in her arms, trying to catch one last look at Papa, at Theon, at the guards gathering at the gates, all of them armed and tense. Papa was already moving, his cape billowing behind him, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Theon followed close behind, barking rapid orders to mobilize the rest of the palace guard. They left through the palace gates without another word. And I, clutched in the safety of familiar arms, could only watch them disappear into the darkness. Please don't be too late. This was all I could do. All I was able to do. I just hope it was enough. Emperor Cassius's POV. The moment I saw the knight's body, I knew something was wrong. He lay collapsed by the side of the road like a discarded puppet, his armor torn open, soaked through with blood. His hand was still loosely curled around the reins that had already slipped from his fingers. The horse beside him trembled, foam dripping from its mouth, as if it had galloped without rest until its master died. One look at the crest on his cloak made my jaw tighten. Everhart. What was he doing here? Theon muttered, crouching near the body. He didn't even make it to the gate. Then he looked up at me, voice low. Your Majesty. I didn't wait for him to finish. Ready the horses, I barked, turning on my heel. Now. We ride to the Everhart estate. There was no hesitation. No questions. My knights moved like the hounds of war they were trained to be. He was coming for help. And he died in the middle of the road. Should we send a messenger ahead? Theon asked, catching up as I mounted. Alert the 1st Division? No time, I growled. The attack's already begun. They don't have hours. They don't even have minutes. Let's go. We rode like the wind. The city blurred past in streaks of shadow and torchlight, as if the world itself knew it had failed to warn us. And then I saw it. The Everhart estate. The mansion loomed ahead, shrouded in smoke. The air stank of blood and fire. We entered through the side, and the first thing I saw were the bodies. Maids. Gardeners. House guards. All dead. I jumped off the horse. Enter, I ordered my knights. Kill anyone not wearing our crest. Protect the living. No mercy for the rest. Steel clashed behind me as my knights charged forward. I sprinted ahead, blade already drawn. A masked intruder lunged at me from behind a column. I split him in half. The estate was crawling with them. Mercenaries, assassins, rats who only knew how to bite when the lights were out. Cowards. Fools. Whoever planned this had money, influence, and the audacity to think they could lay a hand on this house. The house that took me in when I had nothing. The man who made me into the emperor I am. And they dared to attack it? They would pay. I stormed through the shattered front hall, heart thundering. Rage burned through my veins like fire. I would kill every last one of them. Then I saw him. Regis. He was cradling his son in his arms, bloodied, barely standing. The Grand Duke was still holding the line. Alone. His sword trembled in his grip, but he hadn't fallen. Not yet. His eyes widened when he saw me, disbelieving. Why, Your Majesty? I didn't speak. Because behind him, an assassin broke from the shadows, dagger raised. Before Regis could even turn, my sword flashed. I cut the bastard's head clean off. The corpse fell without a sound. Regis stared at it. Then he stared at me. You're safe, I said, my voice low and cold. A weak, crooked smirk tugged at his lips. I knew you would come. And then he collapsed. I caught him before he could hit the ground, gripping his blood-slicked armor. The weight of him sagged against me. Too heavy, too warm, too alive to die here. His son Osric was still in his arms. The boy clung to his father's tunic, too shocked to scream, too stunned to cry. Theon. I barked. Theon burst in from the hall. His eyes widened at the scene, and without a word, he knelt and gently pried Osric from Regis's arms. The boy trembled violently, clutching onto Theon like a lifeline. His wide eyes locked onto his father, unmoving, pale, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Father? Osric whispered, his voice cracking. He's not dead, I said sharply. He won't die. Not on my watch. Not him. Theon stood, holding Osric carefully. The child, his small frame shaking with silent sobs. Get the boy to the physician, I ordered. Now. Theon hesitated. But Your Majesty, if Grand Duke. I'll carry him, I growled, lifting the Grand Duke into my arms with a grunt. Move. We left the ruined hall, bodies still littering the corridors, knights sweeping the estate clean. My cape dragged through blood as I walked, but I didn't slow down. I wouldn't. You're not allowed to die, I muttered under my breath. You stubborn bastard. You don't get to die until I say so. After that night, rumors spread like wildfire. By morning, every corner of the capital buzzed with one single scandal. The Everhart mansion had been attacked. Grand Duke Regis, one of the Empire's most powerful men, was nearly assassinated within the walls of his ancestral home. But fortunately the emperor went and saved them. That was what everyone said. The shopkeepers. The nobility. The maids whispered in the corners of the palace halls when they thought no one was listening. The emperor himself rode out in the dead of night. I heard the Grand Duke was injured. An ambush. Right under our noses. But His Majesty, he personally led the assault to rescue them. Can you believe it? Their voices were always low. Always urgent. Like they were trying not to be caught by invisible ears. But I heard them. Last night was chaos after Papa had left immediately. The palace turned upside down in his absence. Guards running, horses galloping into the darkness. And he didn't come back until the first light of dawn. Even then it wasn't calm. It was worse. A rush of footsteps. A flurry of messengers. The smell of blood, faint but unmistakable, clung to the fabric of the empire like an unshakable shadow. The Lady Narina, they have arrived. Morella burst through the nursery doors, her face pale, lips trembling. Her usual poise was gone, lost somewhere between panic and urgency. Really? Nanny gasped, pressing her hand to her chest. How are they? Are they going to be all right? Morella shook her head, her voice quiet but rushed. I'm not sure, but they must be in serious condition. I heard little Lord fainted and the Grand Duke Regis was severely injured. Oh my God, Nanny gasped. His Majesty immediately summoned the imperial doctor and the high priest. They're doing everything they can to save him, and it is said that he will heal soon. Nanny and I let out a quiet sigh of relief. At least Osric didn't lose his father like in the novel. It's still tragic. Still terrifying. But, at least he won't be completely alone. There will still be someone left to steady him, to hold his hand through the storm. Morella continued, her words fast, tumbling over each other. I also heard there's going to be an emergency meeting. His Majesty has summoned everyone. Even the Chancellor was called in. I see, the whole capital must be in chaos. Even though Grand Duke Regis and Osric had survived, this news would shake the empire to its core. A direct attack on the Everharts wasn't just an act of violence. It was a declaration of war. Papa may not always show it, but when it comes to the Everharts, he's sensitive, proactive. They raised him when the rest of the world turned its back. They fought for him and bled for him. That's why, in the novel, Papa even abandons his own daughter, me, for Osric. I also heard when the Emperor arrived, Morella continued, all the workers and maids in the Everhart mansion were already dead. Slaughtered. Nanny's eyes widened. Oh my lord. The little lord must be terrified. Morella nodded solemnly, and Nanny clasped her hands together in prayer. Oh Lord, please help the little lord get through this. I hope so too. Silence settled over the room. Thick. Unbreathable. Like a storm cloud hanging low and heavy. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows as if mourning with the capital. I could hear it, distant but sharp. The sound of boots thundering through palace halls, the clink of armor, messengers rushing like angry bees from one wing to the next. Urgency clung to the air like frost. Cold, invisible and inescapable. The palace had turned into a battlefield of its own. No one was smiling. No one was calm. I sat still, unusually quiet for someone my age. My little legs dangled from the edge of the chair, too short to reach the floor, but my thoughts were anything but small. My mind raced, far faster than my feet ever could. Then I felt a gentle hand smoothing down my hair. Princess, are you worried? Nanny asked softly. I nodded, leaning into her warmth. Then I wrapped my arms around her and hugged her tightly. I'm worried for Osric. Nanny smiled gently, brushing a curl away from my cheek. Would you like to go and see our little lord? Maybe he needs you, my princess. Me? I blinked. She nodded. Yes. Sometimes the quiet presence of someone who cares is more powerful than any medicine. I don't know if Osric needs me, but I should go. As a mere 2-year-old child, I can't give a rousing speech or wipe away all his fears. But at the very least, I can be with him until Grand Duke Regis recovers. The East Wing, the halls felt colder than usual. I felt it, the chill of fear, of grief, of something far too heavy for a 2-year-old to carry. Nanny held my hand tightly as we walked, her steps fast but careful, guards and servants parting to let us through. No one said a word. They just bowed and stepped aside. Morella guided us toward the wing where the Everharts had been taken, her lips pressed into a thin line. Every so often she glanced down at me, uncertainty flickering in her gaze, as if wondering if I should be here at all. But she didn't stop walking. The room was heavily guarded, for knights stood at the doors, tense and unmoving, swords at their sides. But when they saw me, one of them opened the door without a word. Inside it was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that pressed on your ears and curled around your lungs. The smell of herbs and blood clung to the air like something too stubborn to leave. I wrinkled my nose but didn't say anything. There were voices, soft ones, hushed like secrets spoken in prayer. The high priest. The imperial doctor. A few imperial knights stood near the far side of the room. Then I saw him. Curled up in bed. So too still. Osric. His arm was wrapped in clean bandages. A faint cut traced his cheek, red against the pallor of his skin. He looked so small, so breakable, like he was trying to disappear beneath the covers. His breathing was uneven. He looked like someone who'd been left alone too long in the dark. He didn't see me come in. I let go of Nanny's hand and took a step forward, then another. The thick carpet muffled my steps, but each one felt heavier than the last. Osric. I whispered. He didn't move. I hesitated. My fingers trembled at my sides. Then I reached out, small fingers brushing his hand. His skin was cold and damp, like someone waking from a nightmare they couldn't escape. Maybe he had. Maybe this whole thing was a nightmare. One neither of us could wake up from. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't good at these things. I never learned how to be comforting or kind, not in my old life, not in this one. But I knew what it was like to be scared. To feel small. I knew what it meant to be alone. He didn't need words right now. He did not need any encouraging words. So I did the only thing I could. I held his hand. His fingers twitched beneath mine. And slowly, so slowly, they curled around me. The room faded. The whispers fell away. For a while it was just the two of us. A trembling boy clinging to consciousness and a little girl who didn't have the right words, but gave what she could. Her presence. Her silence. Her warmth. And I hoped, more than anything, that it would be enough. Just until his father woke up. Hours passed. The sun had long since climbed the sky and dipped back down, but inside the quiet chamber, time felt strange. Slow. Heavy. Like it had curled itself up beside Osric and me, waiting in silence. Neither of us moved. His hand stayed in mine. Nanny and Morella sat close by, quiet as ghosts. They didn't speak. Didn't interrupt. They just watched, eyes glossy with worry, breaths shallow, like they were afraid even breathing too loud might shatter the fragile peace. And then, after what felt like forever. Lavi. His voice was small. Hoarse. I looked up and Osric was already watching me. His eyes were red-rimmed and tired but awake now. Do you think? He whispered, lips trembling. Father will be okay? I blinked. Then smiled. Not a big smile. Not a silly one. Just a warm one. Soft and steady, like how Papa smiled at me when I fell down but didn't cry. Of course he would, I said, nodding confidently. Your Papa is super strong. He's like a big mountain. Osric sniffled. Mountains don't get hurt. Maybe, I shrugged, swinging my legs a little. But sometimes even strong things get sleepy. They need to rest so they can get strong again. He looked down at our joined hands. He didn't wake up. I scooted a little closer. He will. You just have to wait. Papa says good things take time. Like pancakes. Osric let out a small wobbly laugh. Pancakes. Aha, I said seriously, puffing out my cheeks. If you flip them too fast they go splat. He smiled a little and I felt it, his fingers tightening around mine again. A little more alive than before. I was scared, he whispered. I know, I whispered back. We're kids. Nanny says it's normal for us to get scared. Osric mumbled, but I want to be strong. I don't want to get scared. There was a pause. Then I smiled again, nodding with all the certainty in the world. Of course you'll be strong. I know you will be very, very strong. Like our papas. His gaze flicked toward me, uncertain. Really? Yes, I said, pressing his hand gently between mine. I'm very, very sure. Because it's real. Not just strong like a second male lead. But Osric will be strong in the future. After all, he is the male lead of this story. And then his eyes fluttered shut slowly, lashes brushing pale skin as he finally let himself rest. "If you say so," he murmured. And for now, that was enough. The room was quiet. The faint flickering glow of the oil lamp cast soft shadows against the walls, and I lay curled beneath a blanket with Osric, half asleep, half awake like a slightly microwaved croissant, soft in the middle, crisp at the edges, and not entirely sure what dimension I existed in. My head was warm. My eyes were heavy. Brain. Buffering. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, steady. They entered the room with a kind of quiet confidence, and even in my sleepy haze I could tell, this wasn't a servant or a nursemaid. It was someone who didn't need to rush. "Is she asleep?" That voice. I knew it. I blinked slowly, lashes fluttering like the wings of a tired bird trying to fight gravity. The world swam back into shape through the syrupy haze of half-sleep, and I saw him. "Theon," I mumbled, still floating somewhere between dreams and reality. He looked at me and smiled, gentle and warm like moonlight on snow. "Did I wake you, princess?" he asked softly, walking toward me. I didn't answer with words. I just smiled and gave a small nod, still wrapped in sleep's lingering haze. Then he bent down, brushing a hand gently over my hair. "Did you encourage our little lord to sleep?" His gaze flicked to Osric, still peacefully snoring beside me, lips parted slightly and one arm tossed dramatically over his head like a tiny, exhausted poet. "No. I stayed with him," I mumbled. He smiled again, that kind of proud, knightly smile. "Good. That's what he needed, my princess." I nodded like a very wise owl. A very sleepy owl. Then he said it. "Would you like to meet His Majesty?" Pause. Brain loading. "Papa? At midnight?" My eyes opened wide, sleep vanishing like mist in the sun. "Can I?" "Yes," Theon said, his tone gentle yet formal. "His Majesty requested your presence." My heart beat a little faster. It's not like this was the first time Papa wanted to see me, but in this situation, with the castle still tense from what happened, he wanted to see me. Something fluttered in my chest. Not fear, not quite, but something. Nervous? Maybe. Excited? Maybe. I held out my arms. Without another word, Theon scooped me up effortlessly. I rested my head on his shoulder as he stepped into the cold, torchlit corridor. The halls were dim and quiet, save for the echo of our footsteps and the soft crackle of torches. But that silence didn't last long. We were getting closer to the meeting hall. Wait, meeting hall? Wasn't this supposed to be a private moment? Just me and Papa? Then I heard it. Grown adults yelling like someone insulted their family crests on noble Twitter. Too skilled to be mere mercenaries, those assassins fought like trained knights. It could be the neighboring kingdoms. They've always eyed the western territories. Nonsense. This reeks of internal betrayal. A noble's hand, surely. Theon's steps didn't slow, but his arms tightened slightly like a silent promise. "Don't worry. I've got you." The doors swung open. The moment we entered the hall, I blinked at the battlefield in front of me. Nobles. Everywhere. Talking over each other like they were paid per word. "Your Majesty, I believe it was premeditated. Possibly orchestrated by a neighboring kingdom. But the Grand Duke was drugged, and the attack took place during the absence of the former Lord of Everheart. They were flinging accusations like toddlers with finger paint, and twice as messy. And then there was him. Emperor Cassius Devereux. Sitting on the throne like a storm trapped in human form. His posture was straight, his shoulders were squared, and his expression was carved from ice and tempered rage. He wasn't yelling, but somehow he was still the loudest presence in the room. He looked pissed. Like very pissed. I guess he is a step away from swinging his sword and beheading them, but he is controlling. Let's just say if looks could kill, this room would be a graveyard and I'd be planning a royal funeral bake sale. "It's a declaration of war, Your Majesty. But we cannot declare war without knowing who the real culprit is." Then bam. Papa slammed his hand down on the armrest. "Everyone shut up so fast you'd think someone muted the world. Isn't that why I ordered you all to investigate?" He growled, low and terrifying. "You all must have a collective death wish since you're still standing here squawking instead of doing your damn job." Oops. There it is. The full Dragon Dad experience. One poor noble, clearly suicidal, squeaked, "But Your Majesty, we can't begin until the Grand Duke wakes and gives his account." I gasped in my brain. Oh no. He just unlocked the insta-death route. Papa didn't blink. He just stood up and whoosh, there went the sword right to the guy's neck. I might have gasped. Or maybe I just thought it. Papa's voice dropped even lower, calm but full of venom. By tomorrow morning I want the investigation reports on my desk. Or I'll tie your worthless bodies to the kingdom gates alive. Understand? Yikes. That's an extremely creative way to die. Suddenly everyone understood. Very quickly. Heads bobbed. Papers rustled. People began scrambling with the kind of desperation only a near-death threat could inspire. Meanwhile, I was still being held like a tiny princess backpack, blinking at this whole scene and wondering, this is what you called me for, Papa? A live demonstration of how to scare people into competence? I glanced at him. He hadn't seen me yet. To be fair, he was busy making every noble in the room consider a career change. Should I wave? Puff. Do a dramatic, Papa? No. I'll wait until the murder vibes simmer down. But then, come on, princess. You should go to His Majesty, Theon said gently as he set me down. Excuse me. I gave him a silent scream of betrayal. I gasped, internally of course. Are you crazy, Theon? At least wait until the murder vibes simmer down. But it was too late. Papa noticed me and now I couldn't pretend to wait anymore. Papa, I stretched out my hands and ran to him. He didn't smile, not exactly, but his expression softened the second he saw me. He caught me easily and pulled me onto his lap like I was the only thing in the world that made sense. Which, to be fair, I probably was. Now here we were, me and Papa, on the imperial throne, which by the way had a slightly broken armrest. I think it broke when Papa slammed it earlier. Poor gold armrest. You did your best. Rest in peace, fancy armrest. Then he brushed my hair back with his hand, his touch gentle in contrast to the stormy atmosphere around us. Were you asleep? He asked quietly. I nodded. Yeah. He said nothing at first, just leaned me against him like a living teddy bear and wrapped his arms around me tighter. I squinted and blinked up at him. Papa, are you stressed? He looked down, eyebrow arching. No. I squinted. Are you sure? Do I look like I'm stressed? I nodded seriously. I can see black things under your eyes. Those are shadows. Nope, I said, poking his cheek gently. That's stress. You look like a panda, Papa. Theon, still nearby, chuckled, but Papa just looked at me for a long second. Then he pulled me into a softer hug, his big hand cradling the back of my head. His eyes closed like he was finally letting himself breathe for the first time in hours. Don't worry, he murmured, more to himself than to me. It will be gone soon. I will take care of everything. I hugged him back, pressing my cheek to his chest. Because I knew he wasn't really saying those words to me. He was saying them to himself. He must have been stressed after everything that happened at the Everhart estate. Even in the novel it was mentioned that, during Osric's coming-of-age ceremony, when Papa spoke with him, it was clear. Emperor Cassius's only regret that night was not reaching the Everhart estate in time. Theon then stepped forward, clearing his throat lightly. I think you should rest for a while, Your Majesty. Papa didn't open his eyes. I can't. You should, Theon said, with the quiet firmness of a man who's walked into danger more times than he cares to count. You haven't slept, and your daughter is starting to diagnose you with animal comparisons. I only said panda, I mumbled. Papa cracked one eye open and gave him a flat look. I don't pay you to take her side. You don't pay me at all, Theon replied, deadpan. Papa stared at Theon longer and then sighed. Then he ran a hand through his hair. Fine. I'll rest. Just a little. Theon nodded. I'll handle the rest here, Your Majesty. Papa rose from the throne, lifting me in his arms as if I weighed nothing. He turned and walked out of the hall, his steps quieter, slower but steady. And just like that, the night full of chaos and tension melted into the soft sound of his footsteps. Emperor Cassius POV. The wine tastes bitter tonight. Strange. It's the same bottle I've had aged for 15 years. Same grapes, same vineyard. And yet it grates on my tongue like ash. I set the goblet aside. Damn it. My mind won't calm down. No matter how I close my eyes or count the breaths, my thoughts claw their way to the surface like starving wolves. Maybe I should train. Maybe I should carve through the air with a sword until the rage burns out of me. Maybe I should kill something. Something that bleeds. Uff. I glance to my side. She shifts in her sleep, my daughter, curled like a kitten in the mountain of pillows. Her small hand stretches toward me blindly, instinctively. And then she finds it, my fingers, and clings tight. I paused and smiled. It looks like she knows, even in dreams, that I'm the only shield she has in this damned world. She's sleeping peacefully, I murmur, more to myself than anyone else. Then she moved again and laid her cheek against my hand, breath soft, warm, even. As if there weren't a trace of blood on my hands. As if I weren't one step away from declaring war. I smile again. A rare thing these past years. She's so small. So fragile. And yet, she grounds me more than any throne or crown ever could. Then I lean back against the pillow, but my thoughts don't rest. They drag me back, to the Everhard estate. Built like a fortress. Generations old. A symbol of unshakable loyalty and might. And it was attacked. Just like that. Simply. As if it were nothing. I wonder if Lavinia hadn't seen that damned horse in the distance. If she hadn't tugged my sleeve with those bright eyes and pointed it out. Would I have been too late? Would I have lost the entire Everhard household? No, this wasn't some foolish insider plot. This wasn't bandits looking to fatten their pockets. Someone planned this. This was deliberate. Precise. A message, sent straight to me. A declaration of war. Another kingdom, perhaps? One of those pathetic little courts thinking they've gone unnoticed. A gamble. Yes. To see how far they could go. But whoever they are, they're going to regret it. She shifts again, brows twitching, clutching my hand even tighter. A little drool escapes her lips, and a golden strand of hair clings there, stubbornly stuck. I wonder what she's dreaming about. Maybe cakes and cookies. I brush a golden strand from her face, careful not to wake her. She's too beautiful for this world. Too soft. Too precious. But what happened at Everhard? It can happen here too. I look at her again and my fury deepens. She's the only thing that keeps me moving forward. She may not understand the cruelty of this world yet, but I'd set the world on fire just to keep her safe. Just to keep this little warmth beside me. The knock. Knock. A sharp knock splits the quiet. Lavinia stirs at the sound. She frowns in her sleep, then shifts closer, laying her cheek fully atop my hand. Her breath warms my skin. I smiled. It looks like my daughter can sleep peacefully, even through the storm. Enter, I say, my voice low and cold. The door opens. Theon steps in, eyes immediately drawn to Lavinia. She's sleeping peacefully, he says quietly with a warm smile. I narrowed my eyes. Stop staring at my daughter and speak. Theon sighs. Seriously, I still can't believe the princess is really your daughter, your majesty. Something snaps inside me. It looks like you have a death wish. He sighs again, rubbing the back of his neck. All right. We've received the investigation report, so far at least. It was reported faster than I expected, I murmured. Well, no one wants to be hanged at the kingdom gates, he muttered. I smirked. Fear is an excellent motivator. But, your majesty, I think you should be gentler in front of the princess, Theon sighed and said. I am gentle. More gentle, he insisted, exasperated. You can't talk about blood and death so casually in front of her. I scoffed. My daughter is not scared. Ugh. Who am I even arguing with? Shut up and hand me the report, I said, extending my hand. He steps forward and hands me the report. I just unfold the report with one hand, my other still trapped under Lavinia's warm cheek. Now let's see who dares to provoke me. I skim the first lines, eyes narrowing. A foreign drug used on Regis and the knights. Newly joined maids and guards. Missing. Some wounded. Some dead. That alone tells me this wasn't the work of an insider as I first suspected. But even outsiders can't breach the kingdom's walls without slipping through the cracks. And those cracks don't form on their own. Someone must have helped them. Someone with access. Someone with knowledge. Someone who knew exactly when to strike and where to disappear. My eyes flick back to the report, scanning for overlooked details. Names, patterns, unfamiliar faces. Timing was precise, Theon murmurs, cautious not to wake Lavinia. They struck right after the knights and the Grand Duke consumed the drug. Almost like they knew the estate would be at its weakest. My jaw tightens. This wasn't a coincidence. It was collaboration. inside and out. Which means someone under my roof, under my rule, chose to betray the empire. They were well informed, I mutter. Too well. They even knew the escape routes. The guard rotations. Timing down to the minute. Theon nods grimly. And importantly, it was executed the day ex-Lord Gregor left to inspect the western province. I flick to the next page. The handwriting changes. Different scout, different region. My eyes pause on a name. A small village near the border. Trade route hub. Usually quiet but recently active. Too active. I tap the parchment with my finger. This. Theon leans over. Tavrith. There were sightings, I say slowly. Unknown shipments crossing into our borders. Caravans guarded by mercenaries. Merchants claiming they were invited by nobles I've never sanctioned. Theon's brows draw together. That sounds like... Don't say it. My voice cuts through the air sharp as a blade. I don't want rumors. Not yet. Not until I know who has a death wish. But my instincts twist in my gut. Tavrith lies dangerously close to Myre, the Eastern Kingdom. A nation of cowards dressed in silk and courtesy. They'd never bloody their own hands. Though they hire others. Whisper from the shadows. Smile as they plant daggers in your back. Let someone else spill the blood. Let someone else take the fall. And all the while they sit behind their polished tables, sipping wine and pretending their hands are clean. Lavinia stirs beside me, her fingers tightening around mine. Still asleep. Still trusting. I smooth her hair back from her brow, the fire in my chest raging louder, hotter, beneath the stillness of my face. I want surveillance on Tavrith increased, I say, voice low and final. No one passes that border without a name, a purpose, and a full report. Triple the patrols. Search every wagon. Question every merchant. I don't care if it's a child selling apples. Ask who planted the tree. Yes, Your Majesty, Theon says without hesitation. And send a letter to the Eastern envoy. I continue. Something warm. Cordial. Ask how their spring harvest fares. Compliment their last diplomatic gift. Theon raises a brow. Nothing about the attack? Not a word. Understood, Theon nodded. Oh, I add, eyes cold. Include a bottle of our northern wine. Theon exhales, catching the meaning. That one tastes like blood. Exactly. My smile doesn't reach my eyes. Let it stain their tongues with unease. I glance down again at the small weight resting against my hand, warm, fragile mine. I know it will make them nervous, and they should be. Ever since Lavinia came into my life, I haven't seized a single kingdom. Haven't drawn new borders in blood. It looks like they've mistaken restraint for weakness. They think I've gone soft, and I think it's time to remind them who I am. And I pause, letting the silence coil for just a moment. Summon Ravik back. Theon straightens. From the southern front? But what about those rebels, Your Majesty? Tell him to end that war in 2 days. My voice hardens like steel drawn from the sheath. What? His brows twitch. 2 days? That's impossible, Your Majesty. Just do what I say. Ravik has grown too soft, I mutter. Playing with rebels. Tell him to finish it. Burn it down if he must. I want his sword ready, clean and sharp. Looks like he'll be preparing for another war. Theon hesitates. So, you won't even give him a break? I turn my head slowly, eyes narrowing. Did I ask for your opinion? He sighs and glances at Lavinia, still curled beside me, her breath soft against my wrist. Understood, he says, quieter now. I'll have the messenger ride by dawn. Make sure the message is clear. I add, my voice low. This isn't a request. It's an order. He ends the war in 2 days, or I find someone who will. Theon bows, posture stiff. Understood, Your Majesty. Lavinia's POV. It's been 2 days. And the palace has been too busy. Too loud. Too fast. People keep coming and going. Nobles in thick robes and fancy boots, their faces pale like they'd seen ghosts. Some were shouting. Some were whispering. Papa's eyebrows always stay low, his jaw tight like he is chewing something bitter. I heard some things. Not everything. Just bits. They said someone attacked the Everhart estate. Not bandits. Not rebels. They said it was from another empire. A real proper enemy. Someone tried to shake Papa's empire by hitting something strong. And that strong thing was the Everhearts. And Grand Duke Regis? He still hasn't woken up. He lies there like a sleeping statue. Pale and still and too quiet. I peeked once, just a little peek, and I saw a healer light dancing over his chest like a candle flame that refused to go out. Whereas Osric's wounds have healed physically. But mentally, he looks broken. He doesn't laugh anymore. He doesn't boss around me anymore. He only says one thing again and again. I have to go to sword training. Even when there's a bandage peeking under his collar. It's like he wants to disappear into fighting. Maybe if he swings his sword enough, he'll forget how scared he was. Thankfully, Grandpa Gregor came. He stormed in like thunder and wrapped Osric in his big arms. Not like a knight. Not like a soldier. Like a grandpa. He didn't let Osric run. Just held him until he cried. Osric may be the male lead of this novel, but we all know the truth. Nothing is more tragic than being the lead of the story. Everyone thinks being the protagonist means shining brightly, winning battles, and being praised. But that's only on the surface. Deep down, the leads are always bleeding. Always breaking. Always forced to smile when they want to scream. Their lives are made of pain wrapped in destiny. I may have changed a little part of the story. I didn't let Grand Duke Regis die and didn't let Osric inherit too much grief at this age. But I couldn't stop everything. I couldn't stop Osric from being traumatized. Now the boy is crying in Grandpa Gregor's arms. That wasn't a hero. Not some male protagonist of some novel. He was just a child. An 8-year-old boy who watched his father bleed out in front of him. He was just a kid who needed someone to say, "It's okay to be scared." And that's what Grandpa was doing. Healing a child who couldn't speak his pain out loud. Who clenched his fists so tightly they trembled. And I just watched. Because I didn't know how to help. Watched him cry. Watched Grandpa Gregor gently rock him back and forth, whispering in that low, deep voice that sounded like safety. "It's okay. It's okay. Everything is going to be fine." Then came a knock on the door. A guard entered, bowed low and said, "My lord, His Majesty has summoned you to the throne room." Grandpa Gregor nodded and gently put Osric down on the couch. "I'll be back soon, okay?" His voice was softer than I had ever heard it. The voice of a man who wasn't just a war hero or a general but a grandfather who knew what love was. Osric sniffled and nodded without meeting his eyes. Then Grandpa turned to me. He smiled. One of those tired, kind smiles that felt like a warm blanket in winter. And walked over until he was right in front of me. He bent down to my level and asked, "Can I make a request, Princess?" I nodded even though my throat felt tight. "Can you take care of Osric? Help him calm down?" I looked at Osric. Still curled in on himself, his back hunched like he was trying to shrink small enough to disappear. I nodded again. "I will. Thank you, my princess." He gave my hair a gentle ruffle and stood up, heavy boots silent as he walked to the door. Then he was gone. And it was just the two of us, Nanny and Morella. Well, for if you counted Nanny and Morella standing quietly by the door like statues made of concern. I looked up at Nanny. She gave me a small nod, the kind that said, "Go on, try." So I did. I stepped down from the couch and walked over to Osric. He didn't look up. His fingers were twisted in the hem of his shirt, knuckles white. So I reached out and gently took his hand in mine. "Let's go out," I said softly. Osric didn't move. "Lavi, can we just stay here? I don't want to play." "I'm not asking to play." That made him look at me just a little. So I kept going. "Let's go get some fresh air." Not to laugh. Not to run around or pretend everything was fine. Just to breathe because he needed it. Because he needed it. Palace garden, and now, here we are. In the garden. Where I, Princess Lavinia Devereux, noble, elegant, majestic and not very good at flower crowns, am struggling very hard to make one just for Osric. Ugh. I keep messing up. My hands are too small or maybe the flowers are too stubborn. Either way, it's a disaster. Meanwhile, Nanny, wow. Just look at her. She's over there weaving petals like some kind of flower queen. It's unfair. As always, I knew. My Nanny is a pro. That's why I won't give up. No way. So I try again. I add some different colored flowers. Oh yes, they look kind of half dead. Maybe they wilted because I squished them too hard. But still. I twist and fold and tuck them in. And then, ta-da! I throw my arms up dramatically. Morella claps. "Wow, princess, you finally did it." I sniffled proudly. Of course I did it. Sure, it looks like half of it survived a battlefield and the other half is hanging on for dear life. But still, I did it. Then I turned to Osric, who was still sitting on the bench like a gloomy puppy. I ran to him. Osric, I called. He looked up at me. And then without a word I plopped the flower crown right on his head. He flinched. Lavi, what is this? It's a cheerful flower crown, I said with a grin, reaching up to fix it so it sat properly on his head. And when I looked at him again, he's so beautiful. Even with puffy eyes and messy hair and a half-dead crown, he looked like one of those soft, sad princes from fairy tales. Then he tilted his head, confused. But why are you giving me this? So that you get cheered, I said as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Osric didn't say anything. And I added, I hope you grow so strong like Papa and beat all the bad people. Osric looked at me and went quiet again. The wind brushed through the flowers, gentle and warm. Then barely above a whisper he said, What if I'm not strong like your Papa? His voice cracked just a little. I blinked and smiled with confidence. You will, I know. I said that again and then a little teeny tiny smile appeared on his lips. Thank you, Lavi. I smiled and then, but I think your flower crown is dying. I gasped. Rude. He chuckled this time and maybe my flower crown was half dead and hanging sideways on his head, but it was still shining. Because it made him smile. Goal achieved. But just as I was about to proudly brag about my healing powers, and maybe ask Nanny for cookies as a reward, something caught my eye. A group of knights, fast, sharp and serious, were walking down the path toward the throne room. Their armor was black as night. Every step they took sounded like thunder wrapped in silk. Oh my God, Morella gasped beside me, eyes wide. Black knights. Nanny stood a little straighter than usual. Her face was calm but her hands stopped moving. Looks like Lord Ravik is back. Ravik. I mumbled, tilting my head. I knew about the Black Knights. Everyone did. They were like the hidden sword of the Empire. Dangerous, silent, powerful. They didn't guard balls or chase down petty thieves. They showed up when something serious, really serious, was about to happen. My eyes flicked to them again. And then I saw one of the men at the front, walking like he didn't need the world to make space because it already did. Straight-backed. His silver hair looked like it could cut steel and his blue eyes were cold. Not the sad kind of cold like Osric's lately, but the sharp kind like winter wind. The kind that warned you not to get too close. He didn't look left or right. Didn't stop to greet anyone. He just kept walking. Was that man Ravik? Maybe. Maybe not. But something in my bones whispered. Yes. Still, was he ever even mentioned in the novel? Maybe once. A tiny line. A blink and you miss it kind of presence. Some passing comment like, Lord Ravik will handle it. And that was it. A background character. A name, a shadow. But now? Now he was here. And he was walking into the throne room like the world owed him answers. Which means, something is happening. Something big. I looked at the path they'd come from, then back at the grand golden doors they disappeared into. And my heart just a little thudded faster and understood one thing very, very clearly. There's going to be a war. Papa's pissed. Like really pissed. So pissed that he called in the man with the winter eyes and dressed his knights in black. And he's ready to strike first. To attack the kingdom that dared to hurt his people. Suddenly, even the warm spring wind in the garden felt colder. Tension still clung to the imperial palace like a thick, invisible fog. It had been more than a week since everything turned upside down, but thank the gods, Grand Duke Regis finally woke up. Osric cried again when he felt his father's warmth again, hugging him tightly. It was a warm and relieving moment. But after that he changed. Osric wasn't the same. Not in a bad way, just different, quieter, focused. He suddenly became broody, like those sword-fighting book heroes who stare into the distance and whisper, "My blade is my destiny." Now he trains all day like the sword is his best friend. Well, that's kinda sad. Whereas Papa, Grandpa Gregor, Theon, and a new knight I'd never seen before, Sir Ravik, were always holed up in the meeting room. They were busy talking about war and strategy and things far too big for someone my size to understand. From what I overheard Morella whispering to the other maids, we were planning to strike back at the kingdom that attacked us first. I still didn't know if Papa would leave or not. No one told me anything, probably because I'm too little. Which is hilarious because inside I'm older than half the people in this palace. Sure, I waddle like a duck and can't pronounce strategic retaliation, but my soul? Anne, Morella and Nanny must have sensed I was one royal stress ball, because Morella smiled and suggested, "Let's play hide-and-seek, my princess." Hide-and-seek. I mumbled, my eyes lighting up. And here I am in the garden playing this fun game. I'm going to begin, I declared dramatically, covering my eyes behind the tree. 10, 9, 7, 6. Yes, I skipped 8. Don't judge. A little cheating never hurt anyone, right? 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm coming now. My little legs took off across the garden with all the grace of a sleepy puppy. This was my first time playing this game for real. In my last life, I was too busy trying not to get caught, or hurt, by the orphanage teachers. So, I am gonna all the fun I missed. Hide wherever you are, I'm gonna catch you. I shouted, feeling very official. I peeked behind a rose bush. No Nanny or Morella, just a flower. I sniffed it anyway. Fancy. I peeked behind a pillar. Nope. I toddled across the marble path, eyes darting around. Where would Nanny hide? She had a big skirt, maybe she was stuck somewhere? I giggled under my breath. This was fun. Really fun. And I kept looking, but there was no Morella. No Nanny. Just air and disappointment. Did they vanish into thin air or what? I scratched my head, squinting suspiciously at a bird that looked way too innocent. Where could they be hiding? Definitely not by the pond. Papa strictly ordered no going there and I always follow rules. Well, most of the time. Kind of. So I turned around and, wham. My tiny royal body hit something solid and I bounced off like a fluffy ball. Oh, pie butt. I whined, sitting dramatically on the ground like a tragic heroine. When I looked up, I saw silver hair, cold blue eyes, tall like a tower I could never climb without stairs and emotional support. Zaravik. He looked at me like I was a rare museum artifact, or like he had never seen something so dazzling and chaotic at once. Fair. I am both. Hi, I said slowly, blinking up at him. My baby voice sounded so small even to me. We just stared at each other in absolute silence. Does he not smile much? Or did I break him by bumping him? Before I could ask if he needed help rebooting his brain, a familiar voice called out. Lavinia. Who is Papa? He stepped around Ravik with his usual emperor swag, looking all serious and handsome like always. I lit up like a lantern and jumped to my feet. Papa. I screamed, running like a missile straight into his arms. He caught me, lifted me up like I weighed nothing, which is true, I'm small and powerful, and I hugged him like a koala. A royal koala. He smiled down at me, all soft and warm, and brushed invisible dust from my cheek like I'd just returned from a quest. Were you playing? He asked gently. I nodded with all the pride of a champion. Yes. Hide-and-seek. And I'm winning. Technically I hadn't found anyone yet, but it's the spirit that counts. Papa chuckled, the sound rumbling in his chest like a happy drum. Is that so? And who's left to find? I squinted dramatically like I was scanning a battlefield. Morella and Nanny. They hid good. Too good. Right on cue there was a rustle from behind one of the giant courtyard bushes. Two very guilty-looking adults emerged like they'd just been caught stealing royal cookies. We greet your majesty the emperor, Nanny said, trying to look dignified while bits of leaf clung to her skirt. Nanny. I pointed dramatically, utterly betrayed. You were hiding behind that bush? Nanny smiled sheepishly. Yes, my princess. We were very quiet. I stared at the enormous leafy monstrosity in disbelief. I didn't look there. So close. So close. I could taste victory on my tongue, but alas, defeated by shrubbery. I crossed my arms and sighed like a world-weary old general. This game is cruel. Papa chuckled again, shaking his head in amusement. That's when I noticed him again, Sir Ravik. Still standing there like a statue, except his eyes were locked on me like he was trying to figure out what species I belonged to. I tilted my head. Was he always this intense? Oh right. I should introduce you too, Papa said suddenly, snapping me out of my thoughts. Lavinia, this is Ravik, the captain of the Black Knights. I know, Papa, but it feels good being introduced like this. Emperor Cassius' black favorite knight, Ravik. He is one of those legendary cold-faced no-nonsense, terrifying sword masters whom even nobles tiptoed around. Papa turned to him. And Ravik, this is Lavinia, my daughter and the next ruler of the Illyrian Empire. There was a pause. Then Ravik blinked. Then he blinked again. Daughter, he echoed as if the word personally slapped him across the face. His expression was priceless. Eyes wide. Mouth slightly open. He looked like someone just told him his sword had turned into a spoon. But I still wonder, was he seriously not informed? Not even a memo? So, a dramatic sky banner with glittering fireworks? A royal tweet. Even neighboring kingdoms know about my existence. How come he doesn't know? I'd heard a lot about Sir Ravik, the cold, scary captain of the Black Knights. People said he was even darker and more ominous than Papa. And after Papa, he was the strongest person in the empire. Maybe I introduced myself? Should I wave? But before I could do anything, he said, I thought the news of you having a daughter was just a bluff. Bluff? But why would he think that? I looked up at Papa, then immediately understood. Right. Usually, a ruthless emperor like Papa having a daughter he adores does sound like fake news. Then Papa patted my head with a soft smile. But now you know it's real. Yes, Your Majesty. Sir Ravik nodded and gave a solemn nod like he'd just accepted a new law of nature, then bowed deeply. Then I shall take my leave, Your Majesty. We must begin preparations for war. Right. War. The word dropped like a stone in my tummy. I looked up at Papa. I didn't say it out loud, are you leaving again? But my fingers were already twitching, ready to grab onto his cloak like a koala clinging to a tree in a storm. Just in case. War. This wasn't chasing off some rude merchant who overcharged for potatoes. This was swords and strategy and shouting. And the last time Papa left, it took him more than a month before he came back. Would he really leave me again? Sir Ravik vanished like a shadow with a very tight schedule, and Papa and I strolled through the garden. The birds were chirping, the wind was whispering. And my heart was doing tiny backflips of worry. Why are you so quiet? Papa asked, looking down at me. I bit my lip. Papa, are you going to leave me again? He blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? I heard you're going to war, I mumbled, scooping into him, avoiding his gaze. Are you really leaving? Papa stopped walking. Then he did the thing. He gently patted my head and leaned me against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong like a war drum, except this one was mine. Don't worry, he murmured. I won't be going. Don't worry, he said softly. I won't be going. Really? I shot up like a startled bunny, nearly headbutting his jaw. Really? He chuckled, nodding. Yes. Ravik can handle such a small kingdom without me. I exhaled dramatically, flopping in his arms like a fainting noblewoman. But then he smirked. And even if I did go, he said, lowering his voice like he was revealing a royal secret, I would have taken you with me. I froze. My jaw dropped. My tiny fists clenched in horror. Wait.